Hello, Joshua George. Hello, Divine Soldier. Wait for some more of you guys to gather together so we can have a party here. It is the Friday live stream for this channel. This is the day where I talk with you guys. I communicate with you guys, and I communicate with the audience. This is not a pre-recorded show, obviously not. This is the day where I talk with you guys. So here we go. EAP123, hello. Cheerio. Hold on a second. Hello. Somebody was calling, so that's nothing. Did you hear about the sanctions? Yes, it's been the talk of the town. They've been seizing assets, and there was that soccer team owner, Abramovich, something like that. His assets got seized. He's a billionaire. This is not really that surprising. The whole thing with sanctions and seizing assets of countries deemed as enemies is part of American policy. It's nothing really shocking. During the Abramovich, during the Tehran U.S. embassy crisis, there was billions of dollars that was frozen by the United States government. Some of that ended up in the account of John Shaheen in his bank account in Hong Kong. So yeah, this not surprised at all. This is a war, and there's a financial war also involved. Hello, Sister Tenacious. Hello, Olivia. Yes, I'm not a sports fan, guys. I don't watch soccer unless you have two countries who are historical enemies going against each other. I don't watch the NFL. I don't watch sports. I don't really care. The only sports that I will watch as a fan is combat sports. I like to watch boxing and mixed martial arts, but my favorite is kickboxing. I love K1. I used to love watching K1 during the golden days when you had Mirko Cro Cop and Andy Hug and Peter Aerts and yeah, there was a whole bunch of great fighters in K1. I don't know how it is now. I haven't really been keeping too much of a track on it. Yes, I've read about the Middle Eastern volunteer fighters, yes. And I've also heard that you have Azerbaijanis going into Ukraine to fight against the Russians. You also have Chechen Mujahideen in the Ukraine to fight against the Russians. And then, of course, we all heard about how the Russians were sending in Chechen soldiers into the Ukraine. But yet, those people were part of the... Chechens are Russians. Chechnya is a province of the Russian Federation. So Chechen soldiers are just Russian soldiers. Khabib, yep, very good fighter. USA is acting idiotic. It is really affecting the economy of common Americans and Europeans. Well, the European Union has cut off, what was it, like 60% of Russian oil? I don't know how long that's going to last because Europe is pretty dependent on Russian natural gas. I think the Nord Stream 2, I could be completely wrong about this, but I think the Nord Stream 2 pipeline is eventually going to be operational. Because that thing was built for a reason. So it was built so that Europe could get that natural gas, and Russia was for it because Russia doesn't want to have to put in billions of dollars into the Ukrainian economy and transit fees to export its natural gas into the EU. So I think the Nord Stream 2 pipeline is eventually going to go operational. If it doesn't, then we'll see what happens. We'll see how the Europeans get their natural gas. What other alternatives they're going to be looking to. Are they going to work with Israel because Israel now has natural gas? Are they going to depend more on North African or Libyan natural gas? We'll see. During the Second World War, the Germans were using synthetic oil because I think it was the Rockefeller. I think it was Rockefeller LLC, or it was the big Rockefeller company in the United States that came up with a way, patented a way. American scientists patented a way to actually extract oil from coal, and they called it synthetic oil. The Germans learned this, and pretty much the whole German military machine was dependent on synthetic oil. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, guys. Only time will tell. I thought Chechens don't like Russians. Chechens are Russians. Chechens are Russian citizens. Chechnya is a province of Russia, just like Ingushetia, just like Dagestan. They are Chechen separatists who hate Russia, and the Chechens who are fighting on the Ukrainian side are those separatists. A lot of the separatists who who fought the Russians in the 1990s, a lot of those guys would eventually go to Syria to fight against the Assad regime. And then once the situation there worsened and they didn't really see a purpose in staying in Syria, they tried to go back to Russia, but they knew that they couldn't go back to Russia because they're criminals. So they went to Ukraine. Many of them went to Ukraine when the war broke out in Donbass. And so they saw Donbass as an opportunity to continue or to resume their jihad against the Russian government. Those were the Chechen separatists. Most Chechens, from what I have read and from what I have heard, most Chechens are content living under the Russian Federation and don't mind living under Russia. But they are definitely Chechen separatists who don't like that. So Russia is going to put sanctions on USA. Okay. Chechen Mujahideen don't like the Russians. Yep, they don't. If you never found the right woman and never married because of it, would you be content with that? Oh, okay. Yes, I would be content because I think that when you hit a certain age, you don't really give a shit about any of that stuff anymore. I think that the glorification of women really comes from youth, and when you're like 13 up to your 20s, into your 20s, and once you hit 30, 31, as I have, that begins to dwindle and fade away. So you don't really care so much. When you're 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, getting a woman is everything. It's a huge part of your goal as a man. And so you start getting into the woes of romance, and you start getting into the kind of the sort of Blink 182 romantic mindset, but that all just fades away. So you think the Chechens today are as tough as the Chechens of the 90s? Sure, yeah. Have you seen Khabib? Yeah, those guys are pretty tough. They live up in the mountains. Those are very tough people. I can see why Dana White wanted to outsource fighters from from the Caucasus, because those guys are very good. I heard that castor oil can be used as fuel. Okay. I don't know how they're going to be getting tons of castor oil to fuel all the cars in the country and the tanks and the airplanes. I'm DCAing into rare earth metals. I'm heading that way, Ted, as I probably needed to hear that. Okay. Well, I hope it helped you. Do you think the Chechens today? Okay, I already read that. Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, I think, is amazing. Germany was all in for the Nord Stream 2. They all knew that there were tensions between the Ukrainians and the Russians. and yet they didn't care. They still went for it. They knew about Crimea. Everybody knew about Crimea. They didn't care. They knew about Donbass. That didn't bother the Germans. So why all of a sudden this is bothering the Germans? If this was quite obvious. So I think Nord Stream 2 will eventually be in operation. People are saying that it's dead. It's still there. They haven't dismantled it. They've halted it, but doesn't mean that they're going to completely just give up on it. Any funny stories recently? Well, let's wait until I settle more and more into this live stream, because when I first start doing a live stream, my brain is kind of cold. I gotta warm it up. So I talk, give me an hour, and then it's the creative juices will pump in, and then if I remember a funny story, then I'll say it. Buy more gold. Okay, here we go with the gold stuff. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Robbie. Got 13 people online. Awesome. Germany halts Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Yes. See, oh my gosh. Okay. Have you guys noticed that Google and YouTube have become just almost utterly, completely retarded? What do I mean by that? So if I search for something on Google, I rarely ever get what I'm searching for. Like if I'm searching for, like yesterday, I was looking into the patriarch of Ukraine, and I looked up patriarch of Ukraine. What do I get? Patriarch of Russia blames gays on war in Ukraine. Every single result was Kirill. I'm not looking for Kirill. I'm looking for Epiphanius the First. Not looking for Kirill. But every single result I'm getting is patriarch of Russia. Patriarch of Russia. I'm not searching for the patriarch of Russia. And it used to be in Google where you could go on advanced search and you could look up for specific terms. It used to also be on Google that I could look up things in quotation marks so I can get that exact search. So if I'm looking for Epiphanius the First, right? I mean, there's no point in putting one word in quotation marks because it's just one word. But if I'm looking for an exact phrase or an exact name, first and last name, I can put them in quotation marks just so I can calibrate the search to where it's going to give me those two names, the first and the last name of a particular individual. So if I type in Epiphanius the First or Patriarch Epiphanius in quotes, I'm still getting Kirill. So putting things in quotation marks is pointless. And also it used to be where I could put a minus sign on a word. So I could put a minus sign and then the word right next to it, no space in between. And that would tell Google that I don't want this word in the search result. I am not searching for this word. That doesn't work either. So it's like the search results depends on who's paying Google enough money to have their stuff on the top. And it depends on, I guess, what they want you to hear, or the what do they call it? The word that the people use for the algorithm, right? Depends on the algorithm. So today I was on YouTube and I was looking for stuff in the Russian language on the Ukraine because I like to get both sides, right? I'll look at what the mainstream media is saying, and I hate to sound like some Trump conservative, but that's what they are. I'll look at what the mainstream news is saying, BBC, Reuters, Yahoo, etc., what they're saying, and they can put some pretty interesting stuff. But then I also look at stuff in the Russian language. So in the mainstream media, they're saying Russia has bombed a hospital, a maternity hospital in Ukraine, right? In Mariupol. They bombed some hospital, and Russians want to murder pregnant women for some reason. So I looked up the story in the Russian language. And what do I get in the Russian language? The Russian language search results are telling me that the Azov Battalion, the neo-Nazi, ultra-nationalist paramilitary backed by the Ukrainian government, and which has also been embedded into the Ukrainian Armed Forces, National Guard to be specific, the Azov Battalion took over that hospital and drove out a lot of the civilians from that facility, from that medical facility. And they were using that hospital as a base. And the Russians knew this, and the Russians warned that Azov had taken that hospital. Azov didn't care, and Azov got bombed in the hospital. That's what the Russians have been saying. There have been testimonies from civilians on how Azov Battalion park themselves into civilian locations. So, you know, the English-speaking media is saying Russia bombed the hospital. Well, how many people died in the hospital, right? If this was a hospital filled with pregnant women and children, how many people died in the hospital? According to the mainstream sources, 3 people died in the hospital. That's all they can confirm. Well, 3 people. Doesn't sound like there were a lot of people there. 3 civilians died. Well, doesn't sound like there were a whole lot of civilians there if they just wanted to bomb a hospital. The Russian sources are saying otherwise. Also, Lavrov, Lazarov, I think it's Lavrov. I think he's the Russian foreign minister. He stated the same thing, that Azov took over the hospital. And then you have the Russian representative in the United Nations saying that Azov Battalion is literally shooting civilians, not allowing them to leave. We have civilian testimony backing this up as well. So they always want to say Russia is just evil, Putin maniac, blah 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 blah. But then you read about the other side. So, but here's the thing, though: is I was looking up video footage of Azov in the Russian language, but I didn't want to get video footage from 2016. I wanted to get video footage from that's recent, and almost every single video that I clicked on was blocked in my country. All of a sudden, RT blocked in my country. They're not allowing me to see it. I've never seen this much restriction in YouTube before. Google. It's crazy. Ukraine used the same tactics as Hamas. Yep. Palestinian PLO. Yep. Hamas does the same thing. They park themselves right in civilian territory, and Israel bombs them, and they say, look what the Israelis are doing. Saw this funny post of Russian women thanking Americans removing KFC, McDonald's, Coca-Cola. Oh yeah, McDonald's not in Ukraine, Russia no more. What happened? No, well, who gives a shit if McDonald's is no longer in your country? Cope with them. People will find watch. I can almost guarantee you Russians will make their own McDonald's. You have a Ruski McDonald's. They'll call it Ruskies. Instead of the big M, they'll put an R on it. They'll make their own McDonald's. It's like when Parmesan cheese wasn't being exported into Russia. Remember that? Because of Crimea, the Italians weren't sending Parmesan cheese to Russia. And what did the Russians do? They started making their own Parmesan. We'll make our own Parmesan cheese. Who cares? Some guy in Russia went to the middle of nowhere and he bought a bunch of land and he put a little cheese factory on it. And he was literally making his own Parmesan cheese. I saw a documentary on it, and he said, I hope the sanctions remain. He said this in the interview. He said, I hope the sanctions don't go away, because once the sanctions go away, I'm out of business. So one man's sanction is another man's capitalistic opportunity. Go figure. Who really cares? You know, people are going to find a way to survive. The Germans couldn't get oil. You know what the Germans did during the Second World War? They used synthetic oil. People are going to find a way to do stuff. Get VPN. I've heard of this before. Things are happening just as the scriptures have taught us over years. Not surprised about events occurring lately. Yep. I'm not surprised at all. None of this has surprised me, guys. Because we've been talking about this for years. We've been talking about this since I started talking about geopolitics in 2014. Right in the beginning of 2014, I want to say almost late 2013, I started talking about the rise of Japan and tensions between Japan and China. That's when I first started writing on this subject. And then my interest in late 2015, I started getting interested in Germany. Early 2016, started writing about Germany and the European Union. My father was writing about Crimea in 2014, the year that Crimea was annexed. And I've not always, but for years, I've been saying there's going to be a war in Europe. There's going to be a war in Europe. There's going to be a war in Europe. And yeah, it's happening. There's a war in Europe. I mean, it's not the first time this has happened after the Second World War. I mean, 1990s, you had the Balkan Wars. You had the Russian invasion of Georgia. Well, it wasn't much of an invasion, I guess. It was only a 5-day conflict, but the Russian War of Georgia, the Chechen conflict within Russia. I mean, that's not really Europe. Well, it kind of is Europe. It's right there in the Caucasus. It borders with Georgia. So I mean, you could say it's Europe. Yeah, but there's it's there have always been these signs. KFC, KGB. I remember years ago hearing about how there were Russian patriots who were sick and tired of McDonald's, and they were saying, "Listen, let's just get rid of McDonald's." And some Russian guy said, "Do we need McDonald's to teach us how to make pie? We can make our own damn pie." Yep, I know, makes perfect sense. McDonald's is gone. How are people going to survive? It's like when the people. It's like when remember that video that came out. It was like Popeye's chicken had no more chicken. Popeye's chicken had no more chicken, and there were some people coming out. How am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to feed my kids? For those of you who don't know what that means, how am I going to feed my kids? Okay, in Ebonics, you would say, "How am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to feed my kids?" So you would shorten it to "How am I?" would be "Howma." So we're seeing the evolution of English here. Okay, we're seeing the different stages of change, and we're seeing a language become something new. We're seeing the birth of a new language, you could say. So instead of saying "how am I," you'd say "howma." And then when you say "going to," you wouldn't say "going to," you would say "gonna." So there's no "going to." Gonna. How am I gonna? And then instead of saying "feed my kids," you would say "feed my kids." How am I gonna feed my kids? I'm giving you guys a lesson on the new English. So it's not how am I going to feed my kids? It's how am I going to feed my kids? We're seeing the birth of a new language. It's kind of like how Russian evolved from some Indo-European language, and it's amazing. You'll see immense similarities between Sanskrit and Russian. Sanskrit is not the language of India anymore; it's Hindi. But thousands of years ago, Sanskrit was how people communicated in ancient India because of the Aryan migrations into that country from Iran and I think also Siberia. You read the Rig Veda and all that stuff. It's all in Sanskrit. All the ancient Hindu scriptures are in Sanskrit. And if you look at Sanskrit and you look at Russian, there are some immense parallels between those two languages. It is unreal. Yeah, it's really unreal. Like, for example, the name or the word for house in Sanskrit is dom, and the word for house in Russian is dom. It's amazing. There's a video on this that I watched, and I thought it was pretty remarkable. But yeah, we're seeing the change of the English language, everybody. I mean, all languages change, right? Russian people mostly don't give an F about the West. It's just internet generation that kind of, yep, that's what I've heard. McKremlin. That's a good one. Man, America scares me. Many don't know how to cook or produce. Yep, I know. It's crazy, guys. Hear how you go and feed your kids. According to Alex Jones, eye up your neighbors and yep. Oil prices are going $260 per barrel. Yeah, I know. You see it all over the country. In California, what is it, like $6, $7 a gallon? And then where I'm at, it's 4 something a gallon, which is pretty high in our standards. I guess in California that would be pretty cheap, but over here it's pretty high, which means driving is, I guess, going to be it's going to be based on a planned choice. You know, like we're going to go driving where? Well, it has to be for a good reason. Kind of like how it's been in Europe for years. The anti-war movement in Russia are just a small percentage compared to the pro-war movement. The mainstream media, yeah, and I believe that. Either house or home. Yeah, sure. Dome. Yeah, let's see. Hello, Kasha. America is not a eugenics experiment. I don't know where we get proof of that. There is definitely eugenics being done here, but it's not a eugenics experiment. It's just a country full of people like any other country. It's just that we have people from, different nationalities, different backgrounds. Now we're going to talk about eugenics. Watch. Oh, eugenics is good. We need eugenics. No more cruising. That's right. America is a petri dish. I just don't really see where you get your evidence for that from. I mean, have them in like societal experiments? Yeah, I believe that, but it's not like America was built to be an experiment. In Sanctions, well, I guess you could say it was an experiment for the Enlightenment. I don't know. Wake up call for Americans. Russia, Ukraine is behind the scene lobbying war over Nord Stream 2. I'm just searching stuff online here. Don't mind me. Hello, Ingrid. NPR. Russian airstrikes pound Ukraine cities, but its military made no major advances in the past day. According to a senior U.S. defense official, new airstrikes in the west have targeted Ukrainian airfields. Russian convoys to the northwest of Kiev has not moved closer to the capital. The officials said, noting that some elements of the convoy moved off, blah, blah, blah. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Syria. You know, that's what I think. This reminds me of Syria. So I remember when the Syrian problem was happening back in, it was 2012, early 2012, late 2011. The Syrian problem was erupting, and there was this interview between, it was Barbara Walters interviewing Bashar al-Assad. I want to say for ABC News, and I remember watching the pre-record it was this pre-recorded edited version of the interview in which Barbara Walters talked about how, the Syrian army is killing children. They're killing poets. They're killing singers. A famous singer was killed. And she was trying to paint this picture of Assad being a war monster and a war criminal and all this. So then, here's the thing, is that when Bashar al-Assad was doing the interview, he was doing the interview in Syria. So Barbara Walters was in Syria. Imagine that. And while ABC had their cameras, Assad had his own cameras. Assad had his own cameras. And he recorded the whole thing. And the Syrians posted the entire interview. I watched it. I watched the whole thing. And I noticed that in the ABC version, they took things from the last part of the interview and they put it in the middle or in the beginning. They took stuff from the beginning or the middle of the interview and they put it in the end. They were taking these clips and they were just rearranging them. And in no part of the ABC interview did Assad say, or did they show Assad saying that there was an Islamic terrorist problem. But when I watched the unedited version, which was about, I think it was maybe 90 minutes long. It was a long one. When I watched the unedited version, Bashar al-Assad told Barbara Walters, we have Al-Qaeda, we have criminals, we have extremists in our country that we're dealing with. And ABC News took that out. They took that shit out. Now, if ABC News was so dedicated to fighting extremism, as they always say in the media, right? Extremism, far right extremism. Why did they take that out? Why? Unless they wanted to make Assad look bad. And that's how I see this thing in Ukraine. They're trying to paint Putin as Assad, war criminal, killing people. He's a monster. He's a lunatic. He's evil. But then you have the media undermining the significance of Bashar of Azov battalion, as they call it, of all these ultra nationalistic battalions like IDAR or Right Sector in that country. My flipping phone. Hold on a second, guys. I hate phones. Dang it, I hate phones. So I'm ignoring them. I don't care if people are calling. I'm ignoring them. They can talk to me later. I don't care. So that's how I see this whole thing. The media undermined the reality of Islamic extremism when the Syrian revolution first broke out. Oh, it was peaceful protests against Assad, and they're doing the same thing now. They have been doing the same thing since 2014. And I remember hearing the British saying, "Oh, they said they were Nazis, and the crowd is preposterous." And the British are master liars, by the way. They're very good at lying. The British are the type of people, they can sit there and smile to your face, act super polite while telling you ain't shit. That's what the British are masters at. So that's how I see this whole thing. They gave weapons to the Mujahideen against the Russians, and the Mujahideen were great guys, and then they became the terrorists. And I know some of them were part of the Northern Alliance. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ones who would eventually become the Taliban, who would become fanatics in Iraq and later, because the Mujahideen after the war and after the Russians had left, the Mujahideen sort of scattered around. So then they became the enemy. So how do we know? I mean, who's not to say, or is that the correct way of saying it? Who's not to say, or what's not to say? What's not to say that the same thing won't happen, that the same thing won't explode from Ukraine? And the Americans have been preparing for Ukrainian insurgency for years. 2015, we know for a fact that the U.S. government, the U.S. military, U.S. intelligence was training insurgents from Ukraine. Back in 2015, they were training them, arming them, training them, the whole thing. And yes, Nazis were amongst those being trained because the Americans were preparing for a Russian invasion. The Americans planned out that if Russia stays in Ukraine, if the Russian military stays in Ukraine, then we will unleash the insurgency. That's what America is planning. Hello, Christian Estrada. Emmanuel Lostia. I live in Italy, a country with no national individuality. The latest 5 governments have been imposed by the Republican presidency. Elections were futile, insignificant. Okay. Great. Crosses my mind. There's nothing so expeditious as the sanctions-rich environment to help accelerate a world economic reset with cash going away and a social. Did you hear that Trump is coming back? We've been hearing about this for years. Yes, Trump wants to come back. And more than likely, Trump's going to run again. And if he does, there's a very, very good chance he's going to win. Indeed, they sure as shit aren't masters of building functional weapons. Want to hear something sad? Yeah, go ahead. The latest, Mr. Lustia. I'm trying to understand what your point is. Russia are willing to take losses to do this as to not destroy civilians if they don't have to at risk their own soldiers. Seems Russia is putting pressure on Kiev to busy Ukrainians in West while they solidify East and force Ukraine to accept Donbass and neutrality while killing extremists. Guys, for those of you who are into the tactical aspect of this current event, could you guys tell me how do you? Because I'm really trying this out. How do you think of the strategy that Russia is doing, or how do you guys observe these things? Do you read this in any articles? Is there websites that you go to, or do you just sort of read news stories of what Russia is doing and then come up with your own conclusions? How do you guys assess what Russia is doing strategically speaking? That is my question. I'm not going to be surprised that in the near future there will be a neo-Nazi terror attack in the West. I mean, I'm not sure. Listen, I'm not going to go that far as to make that type of prediction, but I think that there is definitely a Nazi problem in Ukraine. When you look at how many departments within the government, within the Ukrainian government, supported the formation of Azov. The fact that Azov was so essential for the Ukrainian security and defense in 2014. The fact that you have so many people in the Ukraine who glorify past Nazi collaborators and really butchers, Ukrainian butchers who murdered Poles and other people during the Second World War. I mean, the fact that you have the Ukrainian parliament making laws glorifying the UNO, or not the UON, the Ukrainian Organization of Nationalists, stating that they were heroes against communism, when the fact is that they were indeed butchers who aided in the Third Reich's genocide within Poland. The fact that you have all these things coming together, I mean, it's just like you can't just sit there and say, "Oh no, it's nothing, guys. It's just nothing. It's all just fine, guys. It's fine. Give me a break." Didn't you falsely predict? I don't know what you mean by falsely. I made a prediction that didn't come true. I believe that Trump was going to win in 2020, if that's what you mean, and that didn't happen. So yeah, the Russians are employing the classic pincer movement on the. How do you know this? Could you guys? I hear people telling me, "Oh, they're doing this method." I heard some guy tell me, "Oh, they're doing the IV drop method," where they're just. How do you guys know this? Are you guys getting intel from somewhere? Like, where are you guys getting this from? So here I am going to the grocery store after work. An elderly lady waves to me, as to help her with putting her backpack on her back. I bet $100 that there were at least 100 people in that store. Okay. All right. We're listening. How do you guys know these things? I hear people say, "Well, they're doing this tactic, right? They're going to go move up to the north, and is there a website that gives you all of this stuff? Encircling and siege strategy, classic Soviet tactics." Looking up Ukraine strategy. I'm looking for a website that could explain to me these things, the strategy. Like, what's Hello Steak Bake? Is the world over? I mean, I'm still here talking, so I think we're good. I see it as quite a brilliant from my own sources. What are your sources? I want to know. I want to learn. I'm thirsty for this knowledge, but I wish I had a full access to see what Russia is doing. But sieging and using deep strike operations to minimize loss of life is absolutely brilliant. The Duran is a good source. They talk about the tactics used by Russia in Syria, such as humanitarian corridors and the creation of the cauldron around Ukraine army to east. The Duran, is that a website? The Duran. Duran Group. Is that what this is? That's a real estate company. Russia strategy. The Duran podcast. The live streams on Brock's channel are similar. Okay, I don't believe any sources anymore. I think you have to look at both sides, get some kind of answer. And no one stopped to help the elderly woman, yet there are the same people who virtue signal that they care about a Ukrainian refugee. Oh God, the Ukrainian refugees. So let's talk about that for a moment. You guys know what I'm about to say. How many years did we hear about Poland being so adamant about not wanting refugees, right? We don't want Syrians because they're not part of our culture. We're not Syrian, no refugees. But they're just open arms to Ukrainians. Why is that, I wonder? Why? I wonder why. Maybe because they're white, they look alike, both Slavic, both speak similar languages. Is it really about helping refugees, or is it about some kind of idea of national commonality or bloodline? Yet again, it was the Ukrainian nationalists who butchered Polish people by the tens of thousands. Volin, the Chelm, East Galicia. But then they'll say, well, yeah, but these are different people. You can't. Okay, you're right. And I'm not saying you shouldn't help them. You should help refugees. I just want to be clear about that. You should help Ukrainian refugees. I just found it interesting that they didn't want to take in Syrian refugees, even though the Syrian refugees were also suffering. So is it really about help? Is it really about helping people who are suffering, or is it just helping certain people who are suffering? Because you have some kind of bias that's based upon skin color and facial appearances. Yeah. But you should help them. Not saying you shouldn't. U.S. General Douglas McGregor has been talking about this. The Duran is a YouTube channel. U.S. General Douglas McGregor. How did the Duran guys get their stuff? Where are they getting their stuff from? Ukrainian armed forces use Islamist tactics of hiding behind civilians. Ex-Pentagon. Oh, this is interesting. Let's see if I can screen share this one. Let's see, guys. So it says here, the Ukrainian military is resorting to the methods of Middle Eastern extremists as using civilians as human shields. Former advisor to the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Colonel Douglas McGregor, told Fox Business. According to McGregor, Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, needs to recognize the inevitability of the defeat of the armed forces of Ukraine and accept Moscow's conditions so as not to expose a huge number of his population to unnecessary risk. The Ukrainian military is using Islamist tactics in the cities, while Russian troops, on the contrary, are trying to not to damage the infrastructure, he said. The Ukrainian troops are hiding in populated areas because they have no mobility, no air defense, no air cover, no logistical infrastructure. Now they are mixing with the civilian population. We have seen this in the Middle East when we defeated the Islamists. They fled to the cities, used people, civilians. Yep. This is what the Russians have been saying the whole time, guys. This is what the Russians have been saying. This is what they've been saying. Oh, Russia bombed the hospital. They just want to kill pregnant women for no reason. Putin's a monster. That's not what the Russians have said. The Russians have said that Azov Battalion, these Nazi freaks, made their base in that hospital in Mariupol. It's not like Putin sitting there saying, bomb the hospital, kill pregnant women for no reason at all. Like, he's not Dracula, okay? He wants to, Russia wants to defeat its enemy in that country, okay? The enemy is who? The Ukrainian military and Azov and the rest of these National Guard battalions. Same thing with Hamas. And what's amazing is Hamas will say, look, Israel has been bombing, killing civilians, bombing a school. And Israel says, wait, no, you guys parked your rockets in that civilian infrastructure. And that's why we hit it. We didn't hit it because we want to kill civilians. And Americans will eat that up. Americans will believe Israel. Americans will say, look, yeah, Israel is saying, look, that the civilians were in there. That's why they bombed that area. That's why they bombed that target. But none of that trust, none of that benefit of the doubt, none of that willingness to listen is given to the Russian side. It's just, nope, Russians are lying. Madrid Rick or Mad Riddick, could you give me a link that says that hospital was not active? I'd be interested to see that, because I actually heard the same thing on Russian sources. But do you have anything from the English language that says the same thing? Because in the Russian sources, I'm reading that hospital was not active because Azov Battalion forced all the civilians out of that building. Am I still pro-Israel? What does that mean, pro-Israel? I'm pro righteousness, and if Israel is right in what they're saying, then Israel is right. And if Israel has done wrong, then Israel has done wrong. I'm not like, I'm pro-Israel. Oh, yes, Israel could do no wrong. No, Israel is definitely worthy of criticism, just like anybody in any country is worthy of criticism. Russians were lying, just like the whole biolab facilities in Ukraine. That was a gem of... Yeah, I saw that on Fox News. But could you give me a link on the hospital not being active? That I would be interested to see that. So what else do we have here? The Russo-Ukrainian War and the lessons from history. See, and people will say, well, most people in Ukraine aren't Nazis. Okay, I'll grant that. Most people, I believe that, actually. I don't think most people in Ukraine are Nazis. I don't believe that. But most Ukrainians weren't followers of Stepan Bandera in the 1930s and 40s. Most Ukrainians weren't followers of the UN or the UPA or any of those ultra-nationalistic paramilitaries in the Ukraine in that time. Most Ukrainians didn't support the fanatical ideologies of Dontsov and Bandera and what's his name? Was it Roman Stipovich and the rest of these fanatics? Most Ukrainians didn't follow it, but enough did. And there were enough people in Ukraine to cause tremendous destruction and slaughter. That is the point that I'm trying to make. This is what I find so annoying about bringing this subject up. Is when I bring this subject up, and I've noticed that the agitation that I've been seeing upon bringing up this subject has been greater now than it was back in 2014. But when I bring up this subject, most Ukrainians aren't Nazis. Well, nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying most Ukrainians are not. No one's making that argument. Not even the Russians are. No one's making that argument. What we're saying is that there is a substantial presence within the Ukraine. There is a substantial sympathy towards that ideology in the Ukraine. That is a fact. Because the crowds don't lie, everybody. When you see these crowds, thousands of people holding up torches and praising Stepan Bandera and saying "Slava Ukraina" or whatever, and some crazy lunatic is holding a scimitar in his hand, that doesn't come from anywhere. When you have the Ukrainian parliament in 2015 recognizing the UN as a heroic organization against communism, when you have the Ukrainian parliament declaring as a national holiday the birth of Stepan Bandera, that doesn't come from a vacuum. That comes from somewhere. When you have the Zelensky government itself saying or releasing criminals who were ultra nationalist thugs, releasing those people, and you see a video of one of them, Daniil Liashuk, who was a convert to Islam, who is a convert to Islam, who loves Adolf Hitler and likes spray painting swastikas, and you see that guy back in the battlefield, tells me something. And that was last year. You could say, well, it was a war, guy. That's why they let him out. No, that last year these guys were released. Last year. The Kremlin is using How is it the next swastika? I don't get it. It's like every country has a symbol. Every army has a symbol. Every military force has its coat of arms, and it's like every army has that. How is this the next swastika? Every country has racist. We're not see this is the thing, is if I say Ukraine has a Nazi problem, people say, well, Russia has America has Nazis. There are far right lunatics in the American army. But can you find an instance within the last decade, within recent years, of an American neo-Nazi becoming a member of parliament or becoming a member of Congress? Can you find that? No. But in the Ukraine, I can find that. In the Ukraine, I can find that. In 2014, was it not, what's his name? Was it not Belitsky, Andrei Belitsky, who became a member of parliament? Did not, what was her name? Oskana Shorensky, I think her last name was. She was also, her husband is the founder of the St. Mary's Battalion. They want to create a Ukrainian Hezbollah. She became a member of parliament. There were a number of other ultra-nationalists who became members of parliament in 2014. When you have the Minister of Interior behind the organization of Azov Battalion, there is a problem there. And I think we can talk about that without having to bring up like, oh, this other country has also has problems as well. You should check out Oliver Stone documentary on Ukraine. I did not know if it has been taken down. Israel is telling Ukraine to give up before more of their citizens get killed. Where is it saying that? Hold on. I'm looking this up right now. Israel, Ukraine. And it wants Ukraine to surrender. I wonder why. That's interesting. That's interesting. It's on Haaretz here. I'll have to pay money to read it. Ukrainian senior government official harshly criticized Prime Minister Naftali Bennett's efforts to mediate the crisis with Russia. The official said Friday that Bennett is using the mediation as an excuse to justify the fact that Israel is avoiding transferring military aid to Ukraine or joining the sanctions slapped on Russia. The official added that Bennett is serving as a mailbox between Ukraine and Russia, and that the Israeli Prime Minister pressured Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky to accept Russian President Vladimir Putin's conditions for ending the war. So what are his conditions? Does he have any conditions? I'm sure he does. Conditions. What are his conditions? The neo-Nazis in Russia are suppressed by the Russian government, unlike in Ukraine. I mean, yeah, we all know there's Nazis in Russia. We know that they have racism in Russia. I mean, like, we've heard this all. Like, this is not, I'm not going to deny that. That would be stupid of me to deny that. But it's like, can we talk about the Nazi problem in Ukraine without talking about something in Russia? Like, well, it happens in Russia too. Okay, can you give me an example of not like neo-Nazis becoming members of parliament? Could you give me an example of the Russian government actually relying on a neo-Nazi battalion. I mean, you could say, well, Wagner, right? Okay, but is it like the official doctrine of Wagner to have love for Nazi collaborators, things like that? I've heard that there are neo-Nazis in Wagner, and I'm a fan of Wagner. I am not a fan of Wagner. I've talked about Wagner, and I've written on Wagner before. I don't like them. Nazis are fascist. Oh, here we go with the Nazi versus fascist argument. Elon Musk said he's ignoring sanctions with his internet company. So fascism is not the same as Nazism. Well, one is German, one is Italian, right? But they both have similarities. They both have overlap between each other. Definitely, there is an extreme fixation on the idea of the nation. Definitely, there's an idea of ultra nationalism. Like these, there's definitely overlap between the two. Yeah, I know. The Russians, millions of Russians died fighting the Nazis. That's a fact. How many Ukrainians joined the Nazis? Literally hundreds of thousands were on the Nazi side. How many Ukrainians were in the SS? Tons of them. How many Romanians were in the SS? Romania had literally hundreds of thousands of people joining the SS. It was ridiculous how many Romanians joined the Nazis. Nazis and fascism are born from the same tree of socialism. I guess you could say fascism is German, or sorry, Nazism is German fascism. Okay, guys, so let's see here. Differences between Nazism and fascism. Here we go. Fascism versus Nazism, basic concepts. Fascism is a political system imposing economic and social measures very strictly for taking away the rights of the citizens, etc. It is characterized by dictatorship, racist nationalism, militarism, and destructive policies. Fascism and Nazism are two different doctrines that are often used interchangeably with each other. Most people don't know that there are more prominent points of differences between the very origins of the both. Was English the first language of whoever wrote this? Fascism got its limelight between 1919 and 1945. It was during the rule of Mussolini, etc. During the First and Second World War, many countries had fascist governments, including Japan, Italy, Austria, Germany, which were known as the Axis. Fascism is a form of nationalism which is based on the authoritarian or totalitarian system of government. The system was advocated by many popular theorists like John Austin. On the other hand, Nazism came into being during the rule of Adolf Hitler and gained popularity between 19... It all ended with the Second World War. Okay, so what's the difference? Benito Mussolini was the Italian leader behind fascism. Germany, okay, the state was the main focal point of fascism, while racism was the main focal point of Nazism. But the state within Nazism was considered pretty important. Pray for Bakersfield, absolutely. You can try to use live universal awareness map. How do I get on this thing? Oh, I got to pay money for this? Oh, forget that. Comparing the differences. Nazism and fascism are born from the same tree. You can try to use, I believe, the biggest splitting hairs between the two systems. Yeah, they're both bad. I don't know why people are like, "It's not the same thing. Nazism and fascism, not the same thing." Okay, what's the difference? One's Italian, one's German. One has spaghetti, the other one has, what, kielbasa. Okay. Corn and Limp Biscuit. Corn is probably better than Limp Biscuit, don't you wouldn't you guys agree? Let's see here. Ukraine, Russia war map. Oh, there's a map I can look at here. New York Times. Oh, wow. So is this the hold on, is this the encircling argument that you guys bring up? Is this the encircling argument that you guys keep bringing up? Is this what you guys mean by encircling? Although Russia has not captured major cities in recent days, its invasion is far from stalled. Russian forces continue to make gains, pushing into smaller cities and encircling larger ones. Troops have been nearing Kiev, the capital, and also closing in on key cities in the south and the northeast. Yeah, it definitely wants to take Kharkiv. That's the second biggest city in Ukraine. Right now, they're fighting over Mariupol. That's where Azov is hanging out. The advances have also been arduous, halting, and costly. In some areas, Ukrainian forces have repeatedly pushed the Russians back and have regularly disrupted supply lines. The Ukrainians have managed to hold front lines outside major cities, even as the much larger Russian forces has bombarded civilian areas with devastating airstrikes. But even Russia's slow progress in circling major cities has put enormous pressure on Ukrainian civilians, some of whom lack electricity. Oh, Russia is doing all that. Ukraine's military remains on the defensive as Russia consolidates its positions outside major cities and threatens to isolate larger numbers of Ukrainian troops or force them to retreat. How is it going to end? I have no idea. I really don't know. I'm not in a position to know that. I am reading the New York Times. The mighty might meth. So they're fighting in Cherniv. They want to go down here to Kiev. I guess that's what this map is telling me. Russian forces continue to have the upper hand in the south. Their offensive in Mykolaiv continued as they worked to encircle the city from the east, with troops conducting offensive radiating out. Some troops have pushed up as far as Oleksandrivka, not far from the South Ukraine nuclear power plant, the country's second largest. Others have made their way to north and northeast of Mykolaiv, etc., etc. Russia has taken over the whole of the country because Putin is actually trying to not avoid civilian casualties. I think you mean to avoid. The Ukrainians are using people as human shields. That's what I've read. Reuters are reporting that Facebook and Instagram are allowing Nazi to call for death of Putin and Russian soldiers. Is that right? That doesn't surprise me at all because this lady that I follow on Instagram, she's a chef, Olia Hercules. She put up a recipe how to make a Molotov cocktail. Oh wow, amazing, wonderful. What is this? Instagram. Let's see. Instagram Nazis. 8 hours ago, Russia. Let's see. Yahoo News. Russia has moved to ban Instagram as well as designating Meta an extremist organization. The new restrictions come shortly after Meta, which owns Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook, announced that it would be breaking with existing policy and allowing users to call for the death of Russian armed forces. Yeah, this has been going on for a while. Facebook and Instagram users in some countries will be allowed to call for violence against Russians and the death of Vladimir Putin. According to leaked emails, Meta and the social media platform's parent company will temporarily change its hate speech policy for posts regarding the war in Ukraine for the countries involved and most neighboring European countries. Posts calling for the death of Mr. Putin or Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko will be allowed in a change to the company's rules on violence and incite. Ooh, fascinating. How many times did I get striked by YouTube for saying something about some group of people? Well, we got to get you a strike. Now you can do it with Russians. Death to Russians. I hate Russians. Blah, blah, blah. Wes Borland of Limp Bizkit is a pretty amazing instrumentalist. I listen, Limp Bizkit isn't bad, but I think Korn is better. Just creatively speaking. Okay, creativity-wise, I think Korn is better than Limp Bizkit, but I did enjoy some of their music. It is clear that all actors on this stage are Kabbalists. Could you give me some information on that? I'd be interested to see that. I say that with sincerity. Linkin Park is not better than Korn. I think Korn is better than Linkin Park. In accordance with the federal law on countering extremist activity, the Prosecutor General's Office of the Russian Federation sent an application to the court to recognize Meta Platforms Inc. as an extremist organization and ban its activities in the territory of the Russian Federation. Good on Russia for that. WhatsApp will not be affected by measures against Meta since it's a means of communication, not posting information. Blah, blah, blah. And how many years did we hear about, oh, the far right? Oh, we're talking about the far right, everybody. It's the far right. Let's talk about the far right, right-wing, far-right extremism, Donald Trump. Donald Trump, far-right extremism, but here we have far-right extremism in Ukraine, and that's okay because they're our allies. See, guys, it's all bullshit. It would be pretty embarrassing for all the West if Russia win the war in the Ukraine. So by the facts, I can suppose that the USA government is a Nazi. What are you talking about? No. How did you come to that argument? I can't send a message to my friends. So okay, whatever. Thanks for the map. Seems like it is very biased on reporting casualty. However, we can see there where the actions are. Yes, America is a fascist country. We give money to immigrants, and we allow immigrants to have benefits and welfare, and yeah, we even allow people who are not even documented to come in here, and we allow them to work. Yeah, 1 million people every day try to come in here, I think, or something like that. Every year, I think we get 1 million new immigrants. Africa, China. Yes, we're very fascist. Very, very fascist. Ultra-nationalist, absolutely. Keep it up with the false equivalencies. Just keep it up. Did you hear about the school principal getting fired for reading his favorite book to school? No, I haven't. Keep on whacking in Das Reich world. You forget that Putin is revered as a savior figure in the far-right fascist circles. I forget. How do you know I forget anything? This is how people write online. You forget. You ignore. You lie. How did I forget anything? Yes, there's definitely nationalism in Russia. Yes, there are people who revere Putin, just like there were people who were revering Donald Trump. Yes. Does that mean that they're necessarily like, are they holding up swastikas? No, he's a dictator. Just like in Syria, there was a dictator named Assad. Yes, there was Mubarak. Yes, there was Gaddafi. How many times do I have to say this? Every country has a reverence for some politician. This is just the fact of human society. How did I forget anything? What is wrong with nationalism? The book he read was messed up. Okay, what was the book that he read? Universities in UK are banning Russian writers. The problem with nationalism is that it has this reverence for the country that can be unhealthy. Okay, I've said this about a billion times. Patriotism is okay, but nationalism can't, like Trevor Green said, it can be like idolatry. Nationalism is basically when you put the nation above everything else. Patriotism is, I'm going to appreciate my country. I will defend my country. Nationalism is when you get into the nation is above everything. The nation is above even the church. The nation is above morality. Oh, that sounds disgusting. I wouldn't. Yeah, I'd fire that teacher too. We're not talking about patriotism. Patriotism and nationalism are two different things, although they definitely overlap. Yes. So nationalism has the nationalism is basically extreme patriotism. The ultimate idolatry is the adoration of the state above God. So nationalism is the worst kind of paganism. The insanity has gone so far that they banned Russian cats. I mean, come on, is this real? Is this for real, guys? Russian cats. They're banning everything. No vodka. Oh, looks like it's real. The United Nations of Cat Federation bans Russian cats from its competition. Oh god, that's hilarious. From Eurovision, then Paralympics, and now cat exhibitions. Federation International Feline, International Cat Federation with members in about 40 countries, is banning Russian cats, so no Russian blues, from its competitions for the next 3 months, joining the growing global. So it's like, that's so retarded. That's actually just racist, if you ask me. It is racist. Stupid dogs are barking. Imagine if like some African country invaded another African country, and then they said, okay, all the cats from that African country, what is it like? Night, I don't know. Let's say Chad invaded some other country. Okay, no Chadian cats. Any cat that came from that country can't. That's it. No Chadians. I mean, that would just be retarded, right? Or let's say they said no African cats, right? Because that one country is in Africa, so we can't have any African cats in here. You don't think people on the left would be like, "That's kind of racist, guys," because it's not the cat's fault, and you're attacking a whole people's culture. I feel bad for my Ukrainian brothers, but Putin is right about some things. No Russian drinks. No Russians allowed in the Paralympics. I mean, it's racism. It's hatred towards Russia, and America has always had this bias towards Russia. Always. You were right to call out Germany. Even CNN is nervous about it. War is getting racist very fast, kind of like war on terror. It's racism. No Russian cats. Okay, no African cats. The organization describes itself as, hold on, this is ridiculous, because aren't Russian cats the same type of cats that you would see in Ukraine? Like what are Ukrainian cats? Aren't you? I mean, are you banning Ukrainian cats? Well, Ukraine does have its own little cats as well. Ukrainian Levkoi, Sphinx cats, Peterbold, Scottish fold. There's the Russian blue. That's the only Russian breed that I know of. A few of your so-called friends blocked your phone number. Is that because you're Russian? We're banning all the cats that don't support Azov. I agree and have felt like a lot of people who are aware but don't really blah, blah. They probably would have made people only listen to neoclassical music. Nothing new, Theo. The West always needs a boogeyman. Yep. It was what the Russians, before the Russians, it was the Chinese. There was the Yellow Scare. Everybody hated the Chinese, and then it was the Russians, and then from the Russians it went to the Middle Eastern people because of terrorism, and and that came with the whole thing with ISIS, and then COVID came and sort of quieted everything down when it came to Islam. Right, people stopped talking about the Muslims, and Muslims were no longer scary because COVID was scary, and now we're talking about Ukrainians and Russians. Azov, all neo-Nazi groups. Azov Slevdobova. Okay, man, I'll look that up. I feel like we are living in the time the Bible warns us about. How long have I been streaming? Been streaming for over an hour. Poor Dubai. Yep, the Italians. They hated the Italians. The biggest lynch mob in American history was against Italians. We have been living in that for some time. Hmm. Aren't you opening some alcohol? Are you British, by the way? Aren't you guys always hanging out in pubs? Isn't that a big thing for you guys over there? Don't go now. We need some sanity right now. Don't forget the influential Catholic Irish. Speaking of mobs, Gangs of New York really portrays mob mentality quite. Yeah, I saw that movie years ago. It was kind of cringe, I'll be honest with you. In the YouTube of Gray Zone, Aaron Mate. How do you guys find all these things? Because I'm just looking at news sources. That's all I'm looking at. People are like, Have you heard of this group? Have you ever heard of this one guy has this great?" Like, how do you guys find all this stuff? Aaron Mate on Biden's foreign policy. Okay, guys, I'm gonna get a drink. So, as per tradition, guys, I introduced to you the beer that I will be having on this Friday live stream. So, let me get the screen up here. So today I got a little something different. This is Shiner Candied Pecan. Yes, I know this is considered blasphemy amongst the Orthodox beer enthusiasts, but it's actually quite good. Not as good as the Shiner strawberry beer, which is really tasty, but this one's actually not bad. It's a little too sweet, but not bad. Has a nice bitterness, and I don't need German or American technology to open it. I just go like this. Wait. Oh, there he goes. Comes out. That's good. It's not bad. I should drink red wine. The only wine I like is sangria. I'm not too crazy. Or Moscato is also good, but I like sangria. I'm not too crazy about the dry wines that everybody likes. A lot of people get too much into um a lot of people get too much into vinegary wines, and it tastes like vinegar. A lot of wine tastes like vinegar, man. I would almost come out drinking retirement to do One Night of Terror with Ted. We could listen to Korn or Seether. I think Seether would be good beer drinking music. The Jimmy Dore show. I listened to some of his stuff. I agree with him on the Nazi thing in Ukraine. I think it's real. Thank you, Electricy. That's, I see what you did there. It's clever. Electricity. Some great underground info news on the Wuhan Ukrainian war and Australian craziness going on. The link on Rumble. What link are you talking about? What are you speaking about? On Rumble. Rumble, Twitter. But you know what's interesting is for years we've been hearing about Donbass and all that stuff. What I find interesting is how little talk has been dedicated to actually talking about atrocities done by the Ukrainians towards the ethnic Russians in Donbass. I have heard and read of stories of I've read about stories about my English is just going straight to hell. I have read stories of rape and mass murder done in Donbass by Ukrainian militias. And that's so little talked about, but there's a lot of information on it in the Russian language. And when you bring this up, people will automatically say, oh, that's a lie, that's nonsense. But if you look at um, witness testimony, when you read the testimonies of people living in Donbass, you will see how they talk about women getting raped, people being murdered, people being tortured by pro Ukraine fighters. But you rarely ever read about that. There's a great movie that you can watch. Nanking, yes, exactly. There's a great film that you can watch. It's actually a documentary. It's about a Serbian sniper by the name of Dejan Beric. It's a great movie that came out back in, I want to say 2017, 2018. Very well done, very well shot documentary on this sniper who went to Donbass to fight for the Russian side against the Ukrainians. And he talks about how Azov, ultra-nationalist fighters, they will fire on civilians, they will sniper people, they will kill people, and how he was there to defend against that. Any thoughts on Catholics who are saying that the Pope needs to consecrate Russia? I guess they're right, consecrate Russia and let's see what happens. Why would NATO sustain Nazis in Ukraine? Why wouldn't they? I mean, have you ever heard of Gladio? You're from Italy. You live in Italy. Italy was the center of Gladio policy. So after the Second World War, during the Cold War, um, uh, intelligence agencies in NATO during the Cold War began training and arming and backing ultra-nationalist and neo-Nazi paramilitaries in Italy, in France, in um, Germany and Belgium. They began to do this, and they began to do this because They wanted to use paramilitaries as a weapon against the Soviet Union in case the Soviets ever invaded Europe. That was the plan. And so that gladio policy was there in the 1990s, even after the Cold War, 1990s. The NATO armed and trained members of the KLA, who were definitely people of Nazi ideology. They had Nazi sympathies. So there was that. And then we know for a fact that NATO has been training insurgents in Ukraine. So, I mean, I'm not really surprised by any of this stuff. Just like I'm not surprised about the United States government training and arming Islamic fundamentalists. Like this is just NATO doing its thing. I know Russia has done similar things as well, but you asked about NATO, so that's why I'm mentioning NATO here. What do you think about Russia? I've never really been there. I think that there's things about Russia that I like, and there's things about Russia that I don't like. I've heard that Russia can be a pretty racist country towards certain people. I don't like that. Although there's some things about Russian culture that I like. I like how they have this emphasis on orthodoxy. I like how they have resisted the sodomite agenda of NATO. I think that's all admirable. Let's see here. Coors Light? No, Coors Banquet is really good. I've never tried. I don't like light beer. What am I giving up for Lent? Are you Catholic? Maybe I should give up this live stream for Lent. No more live streaming. That's why Democrats and the media kept on accusing Trump of collaborating with Putin to get reelected and talking about Russian bots on social media. What are you giving up for? You asked me that question. Does the Pope consecrate in the woods? I have no idea. And they consecrate in the Vatican, right? They get all the bishops together and they do it. If you drink wine, you'll suddenly start playing golf. That's true. Actually, you become an elitist. F Gladio, I agree. I'm giving up. I'm giving up Nazis for Lent. That's funny. Russia was consecrated by the Pope. Yes, you see, there's this conflicting. What is today? My English is just garbage. Conflicting. What the hell is wrong with me? There are conflicting views about this whole thing with the consecration of Russia. The mainstream position is that the official Catholic position is that the Catholic Church has already consecrated Russia. But the trads say that it's never happened. But you know what? I'm gonna side with the establishment view. I'm gonna say that it's already been consecrated, and maybe that's the reason why we've noticed Russia opposing the LGBT, Russia opposing, this sort of anti-family ideology in NATO. But I'm pretty certain that someone's going to come up here and say, "Oh, they have really high divorce rates." Okay, well, we'll see. You are a Russian spy. That's why you cannot speak proper English. Yes, English is not my first language. How do you spell that Serbian? Okay, let me try to find it. Hold on. It's on Dejan. Let me just, you know what? Let me just pull it up here. Dejan Beric. So look up Dejan Beric. Here, I'll put it up on the screen for you guys. Here it is. Look up this dude's name, and you'll get it. Trad Catholics can be toxic. They can be very toxic at times. They get way too much into Nazi sympathy. So many trad Catholics love Hitler. So many of them do. They're like, oh, Hitler wasn't that bad, guys. He was Catholic, you know. Right. Then they get into the Holocaust denial, and then they get into, well, that didn't really happen, and Hitler was a great Catholic, and all that nonsense. It did not happen. Oh, I knew this was going to happen. I knew as soon as I say the Holocaust, it didn't happen. So how many people did the Nazis kill? Tell me. How many people were murdered? Tell me. It partially happened. Okay, how many people? How many people? Tell me. The existence of a small percentage of fascists does not justify war. Well, I don't think that's the only reason why they're there, though, right? They're there because they don't want NATO on their border. Kind of like how the Americans have not liked it when Russia is in a Latin American country somewhere like Cuba. So, small percentage of fascist. I don't know. When you have the Ukrainian parliament saying that it's a national holiday to celebrate the birthday of Stepan Bandera, I would say that you would need a substantial amount of the population to get something like that passed. That's a reflection of their own society. So, kind of like how we have MLK Day here in America. Well, there's a lot of people in America who love MLK. So, yeah. Any trad Catholic stories? I remember there was this one lady that I met, and she was like, Hitler was a great Catholic, and he was amazing, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, that Hitler believed in social Darwinism. And she's like, no, he was a good Catholic. He would never believe in that. And I said, okay, let's read Mein Kampf. And she's like, I have a copy of Mein Kampf. And this woman pulls out a copy of Mein Kampf in German. She's like, I have it here in German. So I was like, okay, let's have a Mein Kampf study. Okay. Mein Kampf, chapter 8, verse whatever. So I showed her the part of Mein Kampf. I pulled out the internet, and I pulled up an online version of Mein Kampf, and I showed the part of Mein Kampf where Hitler is literally saying that the strong must overtake the weak, and in order for man to evolve, the weak must be removed, and blah blah blah. And she's like, well, I need to look more into that because I know that Hitler was a good Catholic. It's like, okay. Oh, it did not. Oh, you're talking about the consecration of Russia. Okay. So I'm not just talking about Svoboda Party. I'm talking about also the fact that Stepan Bandera is still considered a national hero. The fact that you had major parts of the Ukrainian government who backed up the organization of Azov. The fact that the Ukrainian military and government itself was incapable of removing the Russian separatists in the government council building in Mariupol, and that they had to rely on Azov battalion to do that. That tells me that there is something definitely significant about it. This is like, let's say some government building was taken over by separatists in Louisiana, and the only way that we could get rid of them is arming and backing a Nazi paramilitary. And that was the only way we can get rid of them. I'd be like, well, there's something about that area. Looks like Nazis are pretty essential. Like that Nazi paramilitary is pretty essential. So I would say that they're not really insignificant. Kosovo Nazis killed my people in northern Albania. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. When did that happen? Are you talking about during Second World War or after? Some eugenics can be somewhat good if done right. Oh my God, here we go with the eugenics stuff. How would you implement eugenics? Tell me how you would do it. How would you do it? How would you implement it? Watch. Oh, I wouldn't implement it. I would simply better education to get people more informed about the issue. Watch here. That's the sophistry. Eugenics can be somewhat good. What does that somewhat mean? Tell me. What does that somewhat consist of? So many non-arguments that people have. Svoboda is not really a popular party. I'm not talking about Svoboda. Nobody mentions Svoboda. We're not talking about the Svoboda party. We're talking about just a underlying cultural problem that lies in Ukraine. Kind of like how there are people in the South in America who still want to fly the Confederate flag. Yes, that's a real thing in the South. Yes, it's a problem. When you have people flying a flag of a separatist government in your country, that is a flipping problem. I was shocked. I remember when I first came to Texas. Here I was, right, living in California my whole life. I'm in Texas, and I see people walking around with Confederate flags, Confederate belt buckles, Confederate flags on their backpacks, Confederate flags on their pickup trucks. I couldn't believe it. I said, wait, hold on. I thought this was like a settled issue. We had the Civil War. It was over. The Union won. The South. No. People were still waving the flag of the Confederacy. Like, how the hell does that make any sense? How the hell does that make any sense? How does that make any sense? It's a done issue. The South lost. Why are you waving the flag of a government that lost against the United States government? That's a problem. That should not. That really shouldn't be tolerated. I don't know, but you can't get rid of it because you have enough people who sympathize with that sort of thing. So I have confiscated her copy. See, I knew EAP 123. I knew you were going to pull this BS. I knew you were going to do that. You weren't going to say, well, we should implement some kind of policy. No, encourage the good people to reproduce. Most of good people barely have any kids because they don't want to have any kids. So what if they don't want to have any kids? Then what do you do? Because people who have higher education, who have higher annual salary, they tend not to have as many kids. Poor people tend to have more children. Why that is, I don't really know. Maybe they got more time on their hands. Maybe they're bored and they just want to have sex all the time. I have no idea why they have more kids, but that's just the way it's always been. Charles Darwin made the same sort of complaint in the 1800s. Oh, the poor people having too many damn children. Why aren't the better people having more children? Encourage. Hold on. Let me break down your statement here. Here we go with the eugenics stuff. You're British, so it doesn't really surprise me that you would believe this because, eugenics does come from England. Encourage the good people to reproduce. So what constitutes the good people? Tell me. What constitutes the good people? We're talking about people who are super wealthy. What about poor white people? What about poor people who aren't retarded, right? Poor people who aren't retarded. They're let's say they're good-looking poor people out there. They have good-looking kids. None of their kids have deficiencies or handicaps or what do they call it? None of their kids have handicaps or any sort of thing like that, right? What do you do with those people, right? Those people shouldn't have kids. Don't encourage them to have children. Are you going to encourage them to have less children? This is like take me back to the 1800s already. Take me back to the 1800s. This is such nonsense. Do you have good genes? Watch. Oh, yes, I do have good genes. Oh, yes, I do. I have very good genes. Poor people have a different view of life. That's true. People with blonde hair and blue eyes, people who are good looking, people who have symmetrical features. I can see all that in the poor population. People who don't have genetic deformities. People who have... okay, there are plenty of people who are poor who don't have genetic deformities. So what if you are the target? This is what makes it so stupid. Guys, I'm not attacking the bad people from reproducing, but our society encourages child-free life. Also, I'm not British. Oh, you're not. What are you then if you're not British? I'm not attacking the bad people. Who are the bad people? Wait, bad people? Who are the bad people? But our society encourages child-free life. And yes, that's bad. Absolutely. Yes, people should have more children, but it shouldn't be based upon this sort of standard that's based on this sort of standard that stems from you're from the USA, okay. This sort of standard that stems from Darwinism. That's what your ideology stems from. So what if they don't want to have more kids, right? And you haven't answered the question of what constitutes the good people. What constitutes that? People who have money. Okay, there are poor people who have managed to climb up the ladder and become really wealthy. There was a homeless guy who became a millionaire. I forgot his name, but Will Smith played his character in the film. I forgot the name of the movie though, but it was a decent film. You live in the ghettos. Okay, so you live in the ghettos, and that somehow justifies what? What does that mean? I live in the ghettos. So what? People in the ghettos shouldn't be having children, yo. Pursuit of Happiness. Yep, Pursuit of Happiness. That was the film. I saw that years ago. I like the message of the film. It showed that here's a guy who was homeless, he was desperate, but he still found a way to get through it. You know. Here we go with. I know it happened. And I knew this was gonna happen. I knew. Watch. Somebody's gonna bring up eugenics. Watch. Someone's gonna bring up the eugenics. Someone's gonna bring up the Holocaust. Not happening, right? They're just having too many children, everybody. I don't like that. So they should stop. They need to stop because I don't like that. It's satanic. Of course it's satanic. I completely agree with you. Who determines exactly? Who determines it? Who determines who has the good genes and who has the bad genes? It can get pretty arbitrary, don't you think? Make abortion mandatory. I mean, that would be the inevitable conclusion of his idea. Well, we should just encourage them. Single motherhood is rising. Welfare state. Okay, that's a moral issue. That's not necessarily, that doesn't it justify eugenics. That's a moral issue. Single motherhood is on the rise, absolutely, because people aren't being pressured into doing the right thing when it comes to a good family life. I asked him the same question. He did not answer. Single motherhood is a single motherhood. Yeah, we know it's an issue. So what? That justifies what? What does that justify? And maybe those single mothers have good genes. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? It's a slippery slope. Yep, I agree. Weren't the British who said that the world still end due to overpopulation? It was some Jewish guy whose family survived the Holocaust. What was his name? Paul Ehrlich. Yeah, my parents survived the Holocaust, so I want to start another one. Maybe the Nazis were right because they depopulated the world just a little bit. Oh God, so stupid. Maybe we should stop glorifying single motherhood. That's also a good idea, right? Oh, he's just single mothers, single mothers, single mothers. I think we should help single mothers. I think there are people out there who are very desperate, who are their husbands walked out on them, whatever. The baby's father, baby's daddy walked off on them. I think those people should be helped. I just in the name of compassion, right? Like we should help those people because people are desperate. They do need help. I don't mind giving a little bit of. I don't mind if the state gives some welfare to those people, but we should also be promoting good values that prevent that sort of thing from happening. And if people had good values, then there wouldn't be any single mothers. People wouldn't walk out on their kids. People wouldn't have children and then have such a such a destructive mentality. That wouldn't happen. There wouldn't be that. But his solution is eugenics, not just good values. Let's just have eugenics, right? That's your solution. Have eugenics, not good values, eugenics. Ben Carson, great example. Yes, perfect example. Ben Carson came from a single family home, ended up becoming a brain surgeon. EAP 123, I doubt you're a brain surgeon. Maybe you are a brain surgeon. I don't know, but I doubt you are. But hey, if we under his policy, we would have told Ben Carson's mom, don't have that child, don't have more kids. Ben Carson wouldn't have been born. Do you see how insane these people are? They're insane. They're insane. They're satanic. Hitler's closeted romance of Islam. What? Ben Carson. Yep. If a couple has kids, they should not allow to divorce until the kids grow up. Malthusian theory of population. Absolutely. That's where it comes from. I will never understand how the world can be overpopulated. I see plenty of land. Yep, there's so much land in this world. Good values are part of eugenics. Says who? Christianity does not teach eugenics. And obviously people don't listen to good values, so people wouldn't listen to your ideology. So then what would you do to promote eugenics? What would you do to advance your ideology of eugenics? Because apparently people don't listen to Christian values. What makes you think that people are going to listen to your values? Hitler's closeted romance. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Like, we need eugenics. How would you impose it? Well, we would just tell people. Okay, well, people don't listen. So then what? Then what? What do you do? What do you do with that? What's the end? What's the logical conclusion? What's the logical conclusion? You want to impose it. That's the logical conclusion. And again, you haven't answered the question. Who sets the standard for who should have more children? I saw poor people who work their way to being comfortable, and I saw poor people who are content with their situation. Yeah, absolutely. Danny Hillman, you are too funny. Too funny. Good values, blah, blah, blah. Who sets the standards? What, are you going to have like a council of geneticists get together? Are you going to have commercials like people who have more money? You don't directly tell them. You subconsciously impose it, like what's happening right now. Oh, subconsciously impose it. What does that look like? Stop acting like a weasel, dude. What if you want to come on here? Just let me know. I'll put a link and we can actually have an audible conversation. But like, what does that look like? What does that look like? This is what I hate. This is what I hate about arguing with people. Is you tell them like, okay, what about that? And they're like, we won't do it that way. We'll do it this other way. What does that look like? Give me specifics. How are you going to encourage that? How are you going to determine this? How are you going to calibrate everything? What does it look like? Wealthy people can have children who are messed up. People who have money can have children who are messed up. I knew a wealthy Jewish family in California whose daughter got knocked up and she became a single mom. Parents were very wealthy. She's a single mom. Was there some bad genes or there? How do you enforce like, well, this guy has the good genes, but we know this for certain? He's trolling. Yeah, I think so. It's like you're always going to have problems in society. Once you base it on genetics, then it's like it's going to lead to way too much chaos. I don't know. That's the most honest thing you've said. You don't know. So why are you making suggestions for something as crazy and fanatical as eugenics? This is the insanity. We do studies on this and adjust accordingly. What does that look like? Tell me. What does that look like? Give me the. Apparently, you haven't really thought this through. If I'm going to go online, I'm going to start promoting something like eugenics. I better be damn well sure to think this through, because what you're proposing here is pretty fanatical and radical and dangerous. That's like knowing the Bible is true and waving a satanic. Philosophers and scientists and economists such as Malthus, Darwin, Herbert Spencer, who promote false and evil ideas, become famous because they have the support of oligarchs. Well, we agree on that. This guy comes in here and he starts promoting this bullshit. What we need is use somewhat eugenics. So we subconsciously. How do we do that? I don't know. We do studies. We do studies on it. Listen, I used to want a theocracy, right? I used to tell people we need a theocracy. I studied that thoroughly, like the idea of a theocracy. I studied it, and I studied it so thoroughly for numerous years that I came to the conclusion that a theocracy would be a bad idea in America. It would be a bad idea. Why? Because so many people have different opinions in this country, and it would be impossible. Not only would it be impractical to have a theocracy in the United States, it would be dangerous to have a theocracy in the United States, because who would be the theocratic, who would lead it? A Baptist, a Catholic? Well, Catholics are a religious minority in this country. So let's see. Most Americans are what? Not when it comes to religion. What are they? Non-denominational evangelical. So we would have a non-denom evangelical as the leader of America. And then what? Are you going to appeal to the Catholics? Are you going to appeal to all the Muslims living in America? Are you going to appeal to the Presbyterians, the Episcopalians, the Anglicans, the Charismatics, and all the morons who think that music is a sin? Like, are you going to appeal to all? How are you going to appeal to everybody? You can't do it. You can't do it. You would have to have the absolute biggest ass kissery in the history of mankind to maintain something like that. Or else you would have a revolution on your hands. Now, you could have a theocracy in a country where pretty much everyone agrees, religiously speaking. Then, practically speaking, a theocracy is possible. But if people aren't going to agree, then it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Don't even touch my beloved disabled buddies. Otherwise, you will have to deal with it. Listen, fluidum, we agree on that. We agree on that. I can't stand eugenics. I think that's just nonsense. Have you read about the bell curve theory? Yes, I have. I never read the bell curve by Bernstein and Murray, but I did read a little bit about it. This idea that certain people should have children, and yeah, I looked into it. Theocracy is bad. Theocracy is not necessarily bad. It can be very helpful if people all agree, right? Now, if you have some minorities who want to dissent from the established religious view, then they would pose a small threat, but the theocracy could easily deal with them because so many people already agree on the religion of the state. But if you have 338 million people like you do in the United States, and we all disagree, we have tens of thousands of different biblical interpretations, tens of thousands of different churches and cults and things like that. It's not going to happen. So you're better off just having a secular government that's not religious, that doesn't subscribe to a certain religion, that doesn't impose any sort of religious views or any sort of religious viewpoint, and just allow people to vote for what they want. Like, that is, I think, the best system for the United States. I think the founding fathers thought it out pretty well. Stop paying people to have children. Maybe that'll work. I don't know. Minnesota, Bakersfield, man. Ancient Israel was most definitely a theocracy. Yes. Anyway, what else is new? So that is the Shiner Candied Pecan. Made with real pecan, by the way. Yeah, again, theocracy works when people agree. You know, there were too many divisions, I think, religious divisions that popped up in ancient Israel. Tequila. You guys are overreacting. Okay, here we go with the tone policing. I'm just saying we should encourage the smart, strong, and capable to reproduce. Okay, how do you know that? How do you know that? Because Ben Carson's mother was a single mother, and her son became a brain surgeon. So I think you're full of shit. So let's just drop the subject at that. Single motherhood is an issue. Globalism clearly didn't work there. Single motherhood is definitely a problem because there's no father in the house, and people who grow up with single mothers, they're more susceptible to criminal behavior and things like that. That is true, but at the same time, he's trying to base everything on genetics. I'm speaking of it from a moral point of view. He's basing everything on genetics, and I'm saying that how do you know? And how would you again, you admitted yourself that you wouldn't really know how to determine your policy, or you wouldn't know how to articulate what would determine your policy. So yeah, and then he wants to say we're overreacting because that's all he really has to say, and then he repeats himself, and then that's it. So that's your argument. So okay, David Koresh intensifies. People always do that when you give them an argument. Like, I think you're overreacting here. I think you're overreacting here, guys. It's like when Robert Blecker confronted that guy who murdered his whole family. He murdered all of his children, and he's like, "I think what you did was evil." And he's like, "I think you're fixated on this a little too much. Like you murdered your kids." It's like, well, you're promoting something that's pretty fanatical, and then when I press you to actually give me details on what you actually mean, you don't really know anything. You just have a belief that's based on bias because maybe you had some bad experiences in your past. Ben Carson drinking Robertson right before that open. This guy, the government is in everything, including the bedroom. And if they encourage, yeah, this guy, amazingly, conservatives for years have been saying, we don't need small government. We need small government, guys, not big government. Well, we need to encourage certain people to have sex more so they can produce more children. That's right. Put the government right in the bedroom, guys. Put the government right in the human mating ritual. Before you mate, you're like, have you been genetically tested yet? National Geographic has some really good genetic tests that you can get online. I can't have sex with you until you have that genetic test done. Or you would have women telling you, could you imagine going on a date? Yeah, have you been? It's like when these girls come up and they're like, "Have you been vaccinated?" I only go with a guy if he's vaccinated. If he's not vaccinated, I'll drop him like a hot potato. Imagine women coming up to you. Have you been genetically tested to see if you're actually worthy of reproducing? You haven't? Okay. Talk to me when you have it. Okay. Until then, you're done. I need a guy who has the good genes. We need that good genetic testing, guys. Turns out they have a kid with Down syndrome. Doctor comes over. Well, you have a child with Down syndrome. You can always get it aborted. Well, I thought I had good genes. Why do I have a child with Down syndrome for? Iceland and Denmark practically genocided all their Down syndrome kids. I thought they were they're white, they're wealthy. Well, I thought they must have good genes. How come they're having Down syndrome children? Really, it's interestingly enough, where do you have The highest rates of Down syndrome. Highest rates of Down syndrome by country. Where does it come from? Where does it come from, guys? Population figures mean that every 10,000 people, okay, for every 10,000 people, there are 5.14 people with Down syndrome. This is similar to other countries like the UK. Interestingly enough, the UK has a very high rate of Down syndrome. Australia also. Majority white countries. So basically, yeah. The girls want the best genetics. So you have a guy who's super famous, but he's like 5 foot something, and he's a total weakling, and he has glasses, but he has groupies because he's famous. I don't think they really give a shit about genetics. No, I have not heard of Chris Chan. Yes, let's see. If girls are subconsciously wanting the best genetics, and how come, as you said, all the dumb people are having kids, right? So where's the eugenics? Where's the subconscious eugenics? Where it doesn't exist there, does it? You should look into it. Okay. And wouldn't subconsciously these women like subconsciously these women would want to have children, right? Because they would want to pass down those good genes, but they're not. And as you said, the people with the good genes, though you haven't really told us what that means, they're not having children. The poor people are. So where's the subconsciousness in that? Is that gone? Is that taken away? People with the non-arguments, man. This is what I hate about arguing with people, everybody. People have non-argument. They do this all the flipping time. I'll give somebody some certain points or certain facts, certain details about let's say Ukraine, and I'll say, hey, there were major departments of the Ukrainian government that backed the formation of Azov. There's a big there's a big cultural reverence for certain like Second World War figures from Ukraine who were involved in genocide, who were involved in mass murder. The Ukrainian parliament passed a law basically saying that these great people were heroes. These people were heroes. They were great. Blah blah blah. You have these huge rallies in Ukraine, people praising Stepan Bandera, and they have torchlight ceremonies and all that stuff. The fact that the Ukrainian government had so much of a reliance on Azov, people are like, well, it's still a small percentage. It's still a this. Like, engage with the facts that I'm bringing up. That's all I'm asking. People don't want to do that. They don't want to engage with the facts. Well, most people in Ukraine aren't Nazis. Nobody's saying that. Most people in Ukraine didn't support Nazism during the Second World War, but enough of them were ultra nationalist, and they were ultra nationalistic enough to be involved in genocide. The content of your mind and the habits thereof matter much more than genetics. Do your genes manifest over the internet, or does the intellect? We use the internet more than our bodies. Very true. Good point. Media influences people either positively or so morals matter. Oh, so it's not this subconscious genetic force that's guiding people to do certain things then. Oh, so morals matter. Moral teaching matters. Okay, guys. And knowing how you expose such people and think you should consider making a vid on Chris Chan. Who is Chris Chan? Okay, let's look this guy up. Chris Chan. I think I've seen this dude before. Looks like a weirdo. Yeah, yeah. This guy. Just by looking at him, my appetite has been ruined. Thanks. American YouTuber, blah blah blah. Controversies. That's the first thing I always look at. Okay. There was also his last name is Chan. Is he Chinese or what? This guy. It looks like this guy's an attention-seeking troll, so I don't want to give him more attention. The people who worship Black Phillip. Danny is very funny. He's a very funny guy. First thing you ask a eugenist is how tall they are. Yeah, how tall are you? I'm 6'1". Okay, you should be 6'5". Dang it! Above the limit. You're under the limit. So now it's subconscious. Okay, so what about policy? They'll never bring up policy because then they have to talk about how they want to control people's lives. They don't want to say that because they don't want to expose the fact that what they're promoting is actually tyrannical. Society is inherently virtual, and recorded history is the abolition of genetic determinism. All societal change is caused by intellectual content and not by genetic change. Genetic change is an effect, not the cause at this point. Interesting. His real name is Christian Weston Chandler. Okay, that makes sense. That's not his real name. Okay, that makes sense. My appetite has been ruined. Thanks. I don't want to look at this person. What kind of weirdness is this? I'm reading about this. I shouldn't be reading about this guy. Interestingly. He's currently in jail for raping his own 80-year-old mother. Oh man. He needs capital punishment. You see, this is what I hate about arguing with people. People love to use non-arguments. Non-arguments, basically little arguments that are easy to refute, but then they just keep throwing them at you. They just keep throwing them at you. That's what people do. People do this all the time, and you can give somebody. See, this is how you know a healthy conversation. In a healthy conversation, both parties leave winning. That's a healthy conversation. Both parties leave winning. So let's say you have a disagreement with somebody and you say, well, no, let's say this is going to sound so ridiculous, but just for the sake of brevity, let's say you believe the sky is green and somebody says, no, the sky is blue. And you say, this one person says, no, the sky is green. No, the sky is blue. Here's why. And you point to the sky and say, look, it's blue. And maybe the guy has been spending all of his life in a computer or behind a computer playing World of Warcraft or whatever, League of Legends, and they forgot the fact that the sky is blue. Maybe that's why. Maybe they have all their groceries delivered to them and they have their McNuggets delivered to them and they're just complete neats, right? The guy's a complete neat. And he comes out and, oh, you're right, the sky is blue, right? That guy learns that the sky is blue, so he wins in that regard. And the other guy wins in the sense that he has had the pleasure of teaching somebody or reforming somebody from their errors, right? So both sides win. Both sides win. In a healthy conversation, both sides win. So let's say I'm talking to somebody and I say, I think that Japan has a dangerous nationalism problem. And you say, well, no, what's wrong with nationalism? Nationalism is great. So then you say, well, look, there's the former prime minister Shinzo Abe, who was in power for such a long time. He was part of a cult. What's it called? I forgot the name of it, but they want to revive sun worship and the cult of the emperor. Look, Japan wants to get rid of Article 9 from the Japanese Constitution. They want to revive militarism. Japan technically is not supposed to have a military, yet they have a navy that's like 4 times the size of the British Navy. They have all these problems. And the other guy says, you know what, you're right. I'm gonna look into this. He looks into it. He says, you know what, that's true. Then he engages with what the person has said. Well, I believe that Japan doesn't have a dangerous form of nationalism, but in this regard, you're correct. Let me look into that. both sides, they leave happy. The other guy said, hey, here are the facts. The other guy says, hey, thank you for the facts. Let me look into it. He engages with the facts that are presented to him. And both sides leave happy because there isn't this contentious argument that has this vicious circle of this vicious session of circular reasoning, right? Well, no, I said this. No, it's this, and they just keep repeating themselves. When somebody is presenting another person with facts and the other person refuses to engage, what is always taking place is manipulation. That is what is always taking place. So if somebody brings up or presents a set of facts to somebody and says, okay, this is why I believe what I believe, the other person can bring up his set of facts and they engage with each other's information. And both sides usually will present truth. That's almost always what happens in a dialogue is both sides are going to bring up things that are true. It's very rare to meet somebody who's always wrong. And if you ever meet somebody who's always wrong, that person probably has some kind of drug addiction or maybe some kind of mental disorder. But when two people are dialoguing, they will always bring up things that are true, but they interpret the facts differently. And so if you have two reasonable people talking with each other, they'll say, okay, you brought to me some facts. You brought to me some facts. I'm bringing to you some facts. You're right about this, but I disagree with your interpretation. Here is why. And if that person is correct in his assessment of the other party's interpretation, that other party will look into that person's assessment, look into that person's observation. And then if it's true, he'll say, you know what? You were right about this. I was wrong. And then both parties leave fine. That is an example of a healthy relation, not a healthy conversation. If somebody says, I believe this, and the other person says, okay, here is why you're wrong, or let me ask you some questions to challenge your position. If the other person answers those questions honestly, then that's a healthy conversation. But if one person gives a set of questions to try to get the other person to review his own observation, and then that person who's been given the question says, I think you're overreacting, that's manipulation, because now we're not talking about the facts or the questions that the other party is bringing up. We're bringing up the person's tone, which has nothing to do with the argument at hand. So people who aren't really winning an argument, or people who refuse to engage with another person's interpretation, argument, questions, or facts or information, they will tend to have a recourse to manipulation. They start tone policing. They start maybe trying to impeach the other person's character. This is very, very common. All right. I really don't want to do a video on Chris Chan. I don't see anything interesting about this person. He obviously he's a degenerate. He's an attention seeking person. I don't really wish or desire to do a video about this person. FM fluidum. I'm not taking sides with Putin. I'm not. I did a video about why we should not take an emphatic side, why we should not follow a particular side indiscriminately. What I do believe, though, is that not taking a side indiscriminately, that also is applied to Ukraine. Is Putin a fascist? I'm not entirely sure. Is Putin a Russian patriot? Obviously, yes. Putin has his own interests. Obviously, yes. Does Russia have its own problems? Absolutely, it does. Does Ukraine have its own issues? Yes. And the fact is that while Russia is wrong on things that it does, it is also true that Ukraine has been wrong on things that it has done as well. And um, when you have, for example, ethnic Russians being persecuted by Ukrainian nationalists, that is wrong. When you have human rights abuses taking place, that is wrong. And we should definitely not ignore that and act like these assholes trying to restrict information. So that's my opinion on that. I don't play StarCraft, no. Um, I have never heard of Chris Chan. Nope, I don't really study trolls. I don't really study attention whores. I don't study people. I don't study everybody who's doing genetic what's it called? Deranged things. I am human as like everybody else, and as a human being, I don't know everything. You know, I think that's something that we can all accept. Not everybody is going to know everything, but I just learned about this person. I read about him. I don't really have any interest in him because it's just it's going to ruin my appetite, you know, and I want to eat. So he must be a Himmler as ass Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, Puccetti maybe, but we still love it. Blah blah blah. Hey, hi Ted, your videos on Ukraine and your dad's lectures have been great. You should post them to BitChute. I think you're right. It takes a lot of time to post things on BitChute. That's the only problem. How long have I been here? 2 hours. So I guess there wouldn't be any difference if you did a video on Chris Chan. Okay. Is this gonna be one of those things where you're gonna like put a comment under a video? Have you done a video on Chris Chan yet? Have you done a video? No, I haven't, and I'm not going to. So relax. Uh, planes, trains, cars, rock. I thought you were going to say planes, trains, and automobiles, which was a masterpiece of comedy. Planes, trains, cars, rockets, computers, telephones, tires, electricity, baseball, and apple pie, all created by the evil white male. Ted is still holding to his sanity, unlike the rest of us. I read about enough degenerate things. I don't need to read about another person. We get morals from nowhere, and it all happened on accident. Aren't we going to react to music? Yeah, guys, give me your music. I guess this is music time. But yeah, like I said, Ted, I thought you should do a video on whatever CWC because you've been exposing and doing vids on degenerates, including Milo. Okay, I just said I don't want to do it, so that's it. I'm not going to do a video on this guy. The only reason why I did videos on Milo is because the conservative movement was worshiping him. That's the only reason why. Because he was the fact that there was so much reverence towards Milo indicated that there is definitely a problem in the conservative movement, and that really indicated that the conservative movement has decayed tremendously to the point where while the conservatives will say, "Oh, look, the left to woke crowd," they'll buy a book written by a guy who actually promotes pederasty. So that's why I did stuff on Milo. Beethoven symphonies, my friend. Can you give me a piece by Beethoven? What do you recommend from Beethoven? Because we've all heard of his bum 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 bum. We've all heard of his Midnight Sonata and all that. So give me a piece from Beethoven that you think is good. Yes, that's exactly the reason why I exposed Milo. I don't think there are droves of conservatives out there following Chris Chan. No, there's a reason why I do videos on things, right? There's always a greater purpose. So when I talk about what certain serial killers have done, I'm only doing it in the context of defending the death penalty. So that's the reason why. I don't just talk about craziness just to talk about. There's no need to be sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm just explaining to you. Beethoven Symphony 9. I think we've all heard of Symphony 9. Haven't we all heard of it? Isn't this the bum 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 bum? Isn't that what this is? Okay, guys, hold on. Bum 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 bum. I mean, we've all heard this before, right? It's like the most overrated piece of music ever invented. Vivaldi, no love for him. To hell with that guy. Who cares about Vivaldi, right? Who cares about Vivaldi? Okay, guys, Beethoven. Let's listen to Beethoven. The eugenist wants Beethoven. Number 9. Maybe this is about genetics. Wasn't Beethoven deaf? So I guess he had bad genes as well. Maybe he shouldn't have children. I get comments from Indian people every single day. It's insane. Okay, guys, here it is. Beethoven, number 9. Let's listen to this. Wait, I have to change my settings. Output. Internal speakers. Here we go. Ugh, what a garbage this music. I hate this freaking music. I hate this music, guys. This is such shit. I mean, like, okay, let's listen to more. Maybe I'll become enlightened after listening to more. Hold on. Oh my god! Loud noises. Oh, I'm so touched by it. So beautiful. Oh. I don't know if this is like soundtrack music or is this horror music? Like the vampire is coming. This music is garbage. Can anybody give me something better than this shit, please? Music, trust, why me? Okay, hopefully this will be better than Beethoven. God, I hate Beethoven. His music is such garbage. Like high notes and just loud fucking horse farting noises. Like I don't give a shit about. I hate this freaking music. All right, let's see. What somebody said. Hold on, music. Rust. Why me? Okay, let's look at this, guys. Take me to the horse. It's like horse music. That's what this music is like. That's what this music is. It's for people riding assholes who want to ride horses and think. Let's listen to this, guys. Rust. Why? Hopefully, this will be better than Beethoven. I'm gonna judge if this is better than Beethoven. Already is better than Beethoven. Okay, pregnant woman serving coffee. Oh. Already, this is better than Beethoven. It actually has a consistent rhythm. This house looks like the type of house that needs some fixer-upper work. New door, probably tear out that carpet and put a hardwood floor on it. Repaint. I wouldn't repaint it. It looks okay, but that door needs to go, and the carpet should be replaced with hardwood flooring. Probably needs a new tile job. Nice. I'm getting some new metal vibes from this. Okay. Ugh, I don't like the screaming. I'm sorry. Beethoven is probably a little bit better than this music. Why not use the case of Chris Chan to further argue for the death penalty? I could, but then people could say, well, did he murder anybody? You know, and yeah, there's that weird complication. Don't disrespect Beethoven. I mean, you're the biggest disrespecter of Beethoven because you're saying certain people shouldn't have children. He was deaf, so maybe his genetics were not good enough. So maybe Beethoven should not have had children in your eyes. So that would be the biggest disrespect to the man. That the man Beethoven should not. He should be discouraged from having children because his ears do not work. Thoughts on people who want to live in tiny houses? I think that's awesome. I would love to live in a small home. I like small home, lots of land. People like big houses. You see these people, big houses and no backyard. I see these people all the time. Big houses, no backyard. All the time. Big house, no backyard. Little backyard. Or they live in a big house and a golf course behind them, which is to me is the biggest bullshit ever. Because it's like, what if you're in an emergency and you're stuck at home, right? And let's say grocery stores are limited, right? So they say if you go to the grocery store, you can only buy one of each item. You can't buy more than one. There's a waiting list on entering. There's a waiting list for entering the grocery store. They limit the capacity of the grocery store. Like all these things happen because that's exactly what happened during COVID, right? There was a waiting line. People were waiting in the parking lot. They couldn't get into the grocery store because the number of people in the grocery store at that time was above their capacity. So then you're stuck at home. Then what? Well, wouldn't you want to have a nice big backyard with a garden, with chickens, with eggs? Because during COVID, that's what I had. During COVID, I had, and what's crazy is the year before COVID, I said to myself, I better buy. See, I came up with this. I said, you know what? I'm going to make it my policy to always buy my seed the year before. So I already had my beet seeds. I already had eggplant seeds ready to go. I had all these seeds ready to go in my compartment. Had it all ready to go because I thought, now I wasn't expecting an emergency, but I thought, you know what? Because one problem that I was seeing somewhat was when I wanted to order seeds online from a professional seed producer like Johnny Seeds, they would always say, yeah, we're kind of stuck right now because a lot of our customers who are actual professional farmers and not just garden hobbyists, they're buying all the seeds. So you're going to have to wait. And it would take a long time to get seeds from Johnny's. So one day I just went to Lowe's and I went to the seed section and I just bought a shit ton of seed from Lowe's. Boom, 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 boom. Bought a ton of bags of beet seeds. I bought a bunch of stuff, turnip seeds, a lot of leafy greens, things like that, herbs, things like that. So I had all my seeds ready to go. COVID hits. I'm stuck at home. Guess what I'm doing? Now, before COVID hit, I had all my beets growing already because COVID, the lockdown really happened in early March. So here I am, early March, right? What was I doing in 3 months before? What was I doing in October? In October, I had already planted out all my beet seeds because they're cold tolerant plants. They prefer cooler weather. So I had all my beets growing already. So my beets were growing from October. By March, my beets were almost ready to harvest. By early April, I was already harvesting all my beets. So there was that. And then during the COVID lockdown, after harvesting my beets, I planted all my eggplants and my peppers. And that was the best eggplant harvest I ever had in my whole gardening life, was during COVID. And I had enough eggplants to make, I am not exaggerating, I was making eggplant pizza all the time. Every week I was making these beautiful eggplant pizzas. It's a pizza with cheese and peppers and eggplant. I was making deep fried eggplant all the time. I was living off of eggplant. I had eggplant in my blood. So ever since then, I'm like, man, I need to make sure that I have always have seed in storage. But you have these morons who are like, I want a golf course in the back because I love hitting the golf ball, because they think they're elitist or some crazy nonsense like that. So here they are with their house, and then they walk back and there's a golf course behind them. And they complain when all the golf balls are hitting their windows. Yes, I actually knew a guy who bought a house years ago. I knew a guy who bought a house on a golf course. He thought it would be a great idea. He was a good GOP guy too. He worked for the GOP in his area. He bought this house on a golf course and he kept having to pay money for window repair because balls kept hitting his window. He eventually moved out. But then he bought a new house and I visited him at his new house, and guess what he had? A ginormous backyard that even I envied. I envied his backyard because it was covered with beautiful sunlight. It was huge. There weren't any trees. And trees are good, but too many trees make too much shade and you can't really garden too well under shade. unless you want to grow just like parsley or something like that. And guess what he had growing in his backyard? Nothing but worthless grass. That's what he had. Grass. Grass, guys. So I would rather have a small house and a lot of land than a big ass house and a bullshit backyard. Oh, I got a patio. I got some mint on it. I got some herbs on it. Uh-huh. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, guys. Here we go. Okay, you guys are giving me some musical suggestions. Do you recycle your seeds from the vegetables you grow? Yes. So when I grow eggplant every year, I always allow at least one eggplant to completely ripen on the vine, and then I take its seed. You know, an eggplant is ready. You know, eggplant seed is ready to harvest when the eggplant turns yellow. That's how you know when the eggplant is yellow, as almost like a banana, super yellow. And you take the fruit, you'll harvest the fruit. You know the seed is also ready when you cut the fruit. The seeds are almost just popping out of it because they're ready. The seeds are ready to fertilize. They're ready to germinate. So when you cut it open, the seeds are they're just gonna lop right off they're gonna flop right out of the fruit. Now when you cut you never want to eat ripened eggplant because it's very bitter and it's actually unedible. Like you try to eat it, you're gonna vomit almost. You're gonna get dizzy. It's disgusting. It's basically you're eating poison. So when you take an eggplant that's unripe and you open it, the seeds are just going to be lightly there. They're not going to come out, and that's how you know an eggplant is ready for consumption. With seed, it's very easy to save seed with eggplant. You just wait for it to ripen on the vine. You cut it. You take it off the vine. You cut it open. The seeds are going to flop out. You take those seeds, dry them out a little bit. I like to put Guys, I'm so sorry, but I have no idea what happened. Literally, the computer froze. The computer froze. Can you guys? Okay, are we good? Okay, I think we're good. So yeah, saving eggplant seed, very simple. Yes. So for eggplant, peppers, I save my pepper seeds. I've tried to save turnip seeds. The problem is that insects get to my turnip, get to my the seed pods before they dry out. So I'm gonna have to like save my turnips. Yeah. But yes, I definitely do seed saving when I'm done. Um he lost his hearing from eating lead paint. I don't know. Maybe if a woman saw him, she'd be like, I don't know, he's deaf. I'm not sure if I want to have children with this guy. Why did he go deaf? Was it because of lead paint? Well, I just looked it up, and it says here that Beethoven began losing his hearing in his mid 20s. Oof, losing your hearing in your mid 20s doesn't sound genetically strong. Does not sound genetically ideal here. After already building a reputation as a musician and composer, the cause of his deafness remains a mystery. Though modern analysis of his DNA revealed health issues, including large amounts of lead in his system. So actually, it's interesting. It's a mystery. They really don't know why. So a woman looking at Beethoven's interested in her. He's like, "Would you please go out on the dates with me? I can buy the sausage and the sauerkraut for you. Yeah, the beer, please." She's like, "I don't know, Beethoven. You are deaf. Not sure if I want to have children with somebody who doesn't have his hearing parts working functionally properly. I'm not sure if I like that. Yeah, don't know." Oh no. Beethoven is among the greatest composers. Metal is dated, degenerate shit. Really? Really? What about Wagner? Is Wagner like amazing, wholesome music as well? Albinoni is I love Albinoni's music. Very good composer. Very smooth. Very elegant and artistic and just beautiful. I love Albinoni. Um Nickelback, Too Bad. You know what? That is an amazing. I will play that. I'm gonna play Nickelback, Too Bad, guys. Hold on. I got to do the screen sharing thing. Where's screen sharing? I got to do the screen sharing thing. Hold on. We're doing Nickelback, guys. Hold on. I got to do share screen. Chrome. Okay, we're back to this guy. We're playing Nickelback, guys. This song is a masterpiece and better than anything Beethoven ever created. That is my position, and I will die on this hill. All the sands of line of dirt from long days in the fields, mother sands of serving meals in a cafe on Main Street. Mouths to feed, just trying to get clothing on our backs. And all I hear about sounds so bad, so bad, it's too bad, it's too bad, too late, so wrong, so low. It's too bad we had no time to rewind. Let's walk, let's go. Now this, my friends, I never, this song never gets old. This is superior to anything Beethoven ever created. I will die on this freaking hill. I don't give a shit what anybody says. I will die on this hill, guys. Ted seems very interested in China, Chinese history. I am interested in China, yes, in the context of Japan, of the problem with Japan, absolutely. But China is a very fascinating place. Speaking of China, I recently bought a jujube tree because I live in a place that has, believe it or not, we have freezes. We have a problem with freezing, but we also have a problem with actually having weeks of warm temperatures in the middle of the winter time. So we don't have exact seasons like they do in, let's say, California. So in California, you have you have exact seasons. And in some parts of California, the climate zones are in zone 10, which means that you have very little cold temperatures, which makes those climates ideal for growing things like lemons and other parts of citrus. So I tried growing citrus where I'm at. I've never really had too much of a I never really had too much of a success growing citrus here. I've had a number of years with good luck and having decent harvest with lemons. I've had better luck with growing figs and pomegranates. No pomegranates. I don't know if you guys know the meme. But I'm looking for something that can handle freeze and it can handle, because you have days that are warm, weeks that are warm, and trees are like, oh, it's okay, guys, it's warm, and you got a shock freeze. And I've had a number of trees die on me because of that. So I read about this thing called jujube, and it's called in English the Chinese date, but it's not really related to the date. Although I've heard texturally it is similar to a date. So I bought myself a Chinese jujube tree, and I think it's going to do good because I've heard it does really well in my climate. For most Americans, China is a riddle wrapped in a mystery. Okay, guys, here we go. Ramstein, mein Tell. Oh, please, no Ramstein. First Beethoven, now Ramstein. Okay, let's listen to this stuff here. Ramstein. Oh yes, let's listen to this good German rock and roll, guys. I love how Americans love to express their favor for any sort of style from enemy countries, past enemy countries like Germany and Japan. Mein Tell. Mein Tell. I'm going to play the music video because I'm going to see what's in this music video. It's probably something utterly bizarre. Let's look at this, guys. Hold on. Okay. We have a guy dressed up as a woman. So, all right. So when the Russians... I started talking. We have a guy dressed up as a woman. So, I mean, not very conservative, don't you think? Ugh. The riff isn't bad. Okay, this is like good demon music. It's like if you want to listen to demon type music, I guess this is right up your alley. This guy has a freaking dog collar around his neck. Goodness gracious. Ugh. Bizarre. So the guy who believes in eugenics and likes Beethoven also likes this music. I am not surprised at all. Such good, wholesome, conservative music. Not degenerate at all. Oh, absolutely not. Hold on. Hold on. Is this what I think it is? Oh, look, men in dog leashes. Not degenerate at all, guys. No, not degenerate at all. Amazing. We need eugenics, right? Because we need more musicians like this to make more wonderful, wholesome music like this, guys. Amazing. Oh, Mr. Pavel Stasiak, are you from Poland by any chance? Sedin Dedin. Let's listen to this. What's it called? Hold on. What's the name of the song? Sedin Dedin. So the Ramstein stuff sucks. Oh, Ottoman Empire military march music. Oh, amazing. It's probably better than Beethoven, though. Okay, guys, let's listen to this. Sedin Dedin. Okay. I'm pretty certain I've heard this before. Yep, I've heard this before. This is like typical old Ottoman military march music. Oh, look, Germany and Turkey together. Oh, look, World War One, just like today. Band Temple of the Dog, Hunger Strike. Oh, I've heard this before. This is like an old school grunge song. Temple of the Dog. Yep, I know this song, Hunger Strike. This one, this is old school grunge song. Still better than Beethoven. But I can feed on the powerless when my cup's already overfilled. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I really like this song, by the way. It's very nice. I like the band. I like grunge music, so. Most interesting part of Chinese history is the short time of its republic with Sun Yat-sen. I visited his tomb in Nanjing. Awesome. I would like to introduce you, if that's, yeah, Entaro Christ. Yes, go ahead. Share away. Eskimo call boy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he makes fun of people for no reason. Izmir March. I recommend this song. Izmir March. Izmir is Smyrna, isn't it? Izmir. Ugh, garbage. I hate that old music. Ugh. Gross. Ugh. Disgusting. I hate that music. That degenerate old marching music. It's all garbage. Let's sing this nonsense song with no rhythm when we go out and rape people. Use the seed money. Okay. I study the three kingdoms. Okay. I'll look into it. There's so many things I can read in the world, you know, but I'll try. Jujube is great for sleep. I did not know. Motorhead 1916. Let's check this out. Years old when I went to the war. To fight for a land fit for heroes. Sounds boring. The price of all street drugs have gone through the roof in a week, but meth and heroin are becoming even cheaper. Da Som, Da Jang, Geum, Jewel in the Palace. Da Jang. How do I spell this again? De Jangum. Kind of like Irish music. Nice. A little too choiry for me. Dae Jong-gum. And Tara, are you Korean? Where are you from, by the way? Gregorian and other ancient charms. Chants. I read Ben Carson's autobiography. Oh, by the way, you asked me for you asked me to make a Polish accent to impersonate, or yeah, to make an impersonation of a Polish accent. Polish accents don't sound like Russian accents. They sound kind of like German. It's like a German accent mixed with a Russian accent. I don't know. I'm afraid of making I'm afraid of making a Polish accent. I don't know if I'm going to do it right. I don't know. We don't want to bring in the Syrian immigrants because they are not like us. Ukraine immigrants, okay, though. They are okay. I guess it's a Polish accent. I don't know. I put some Wang Fei when I want some Chinese music. Wang Fei. Popular historical TV drama. I'm not really into TV shows, to be honest with you. There was some guy with a Polish name who popped up, and he started recommending to me Turkish songs, which is either this guy's like Turkish and he's pretending to be Polish, or he's Polish and he has just an interest in the Turkish culture. But that was I've never seen anything like that in my life. Some guy named Povel Slovak or something, and he comes over and he says, "Hey, listen to some Turkish music." Guru Randhawa. Oh, you're Korean. That's cool. Are you a fan of kimchi? And yeah, I'm gonna stop there. Are you a fan of kimchi? Guru Randhawa. Somebody before asked me for some music. Hold on. Upside Down by Six Cycle Mind. Name of the song again? Six Cycle Mind. Oh, this is an Oriental band. Nice, decent guitar rhythm.
I've been spending some time thinking I'd be alright.
People focus way too much on love. They get obsessed with it. They're like, "Oh, I'm obsessed with this woman. I'm obsessed with her." Well, she's not obsessed with. If you're obsessed with a woman, she's not obsessed with you. There's a there was a British rapper. I remember he was a I forget. He called himself The Streets. He was a British rapper from back in the day, early 2000s, and he had a song. I forgot the name of it, but he said something to the likes of, "If you're confused about whether or not a girl likes you, you will sound confused in your texts, mate. If you're obsessed, if you're confused, she doesn't love you. That's it. Just accept it and be content. Who cares?" It's about a Korean girl by the name of Jang Goom during the Joseon period of Korea who overcame all the ordeals thrown at her through perseverance. Okay. Ever thought of having a conversation with Jay Dyer? I have never thought about that. If Jay Dyer wants to talk to me, I'm pretty easy to find. He can find me. I don't know what we would talk about. How could they play instruments with all the hashish sorcery and being mad whackers? The Ramones, Blitzkrieg Bop, another German reference. Let's listen to this, guys. The Ramones, Blitzkrieg Bop. I haven't heard of this band since forever. Are they even around? I mean, I didn't know. Are they still making music? Oh, it's like punk music, yeah. Oh, this flipping song. Isn't this song like in every commercial ever? Like, hey, ow, let's go. I've heard it in every commercial. But yeah, it's amazing that Anthony was talking about like rock being degenerate, but this music's okay. This is like wholesome music. I don't know. It's all relative. A lot of people's musical taste is relative. I hate to sound like a liberal, but it's true. Like if some people like Beethoven or whatever, I think Beethoven sucks. I can't convince you that it sucks, but you can't convince me that it doesn't. So there's just no point in even arguing about. There's no point in trying to argue with somebody about why they should like a particular form of music. Like people are gonna like what they like, you know. Iron Maiden, no, please, no Iron Maiden. God, here we go. Pretty soon, AC/DC. Iron Maiden. What's the name of the song? The Prisoner. It's gonna be some monotone song with some high notes. Yep, here we go, guys. Let's go with the demonic stuff. Okay. Metal's bad. Metal is degenerate stuff. Here, listen to Iron Maiden.
Information. 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 Who are you? The new number 2.
Oh no. Okay, this it's like Puccetti. It's a trad Catholic. Why are you recommending to me music with Satan on it?
Number 6.
The number of the beast. This music is garbage. I've heard this song before. It's such garbage. I can't stand Iron Maiden. The Ramones suck. Let's see. Elu Vitae, Call of the Mountains. Oh no. I have to. Oh. Call of the Mountains. Okay, hold on. Let me get this up. Call of the Mountains. Oh no. Is this some pagan stuff? This is pagan stuff. I knew it. I knew it was going to be some pagan bullshit. Okay, hold on. Let's listen to this. Let's share the screen. Call of the Mountains, guys. Here we go. Here's the song. I can already tell by the thumbnail that it's some pagan bullshit. Let's listen to this. The mountains of Scandinavia must be saved from the Syrians. Oh, I knew it. Folk ass white trash stuff. Gotcha. Okay. Ugh. This woman smells. She stinks. She needs a shower. Yeah, we're not Nazis, guys. We just want to go back to the nature. We just want to go back to the nature. What's the name of this band? Elu Vitae? I'm not saying these guys are Nazis, so you don't have to defend them. Swiss folk metal band from Winterthur, Zurich, founded in 2002. Kreigel Glanzmann. Okay. Music sucks. So far, the only good music was recommended to me by Danny Hillman. Nickelback's Too Bad still wins. Still the best song I've heard tonight. You guys are really either you're trolling me or you're just giving me garbage music. Thousand-Foot Crutch. This woman that sings in this song, I hope this woman, I hope this woman, hold on, dang it. I hope she gets the shower that she needs. She needs a shower, guys. She's in the forest. She's banging her head. She needs a shower, guys. She needs a shower. What's the name of the song? Thousand-Foot Crutch by okay, hold on. Thousand-Foot Crutch. Oh no. Oh no. This better be good. Hopefully this is not garbage.
The man, not exactly who you think I am. Trying to trace my steps back here.
Not bad.
So many times.
When did the song come out?
Back inside your hand, you came and made me who I am. I remember where it all began so clearly. I feel a million miles away.
Not bad. Better than Beethoven.
And you created me something I would have never seen. When I could only see you fall, you made my window a door. So when they say
Not bad.
don't leave, I hope that they see you and me. After all the lights go down, I'm just the words you all sound.
Yo, Steak Bake, you're right. The copyright thing is I got hit recently because I played AC/DC, so I'm gonna have to, you know what? Maybe I should stop. Try the Russian music is never copyrighted though. Russian music, Alexander Gradsky. What song? I can't the Cyrillic stuff I don't know. I can't write the Cyrillic, so I can't copy and paste stuff. Oh, I think I've seen this dude. Let me see if I can get it here. Hold on. Oh no. Oh, I've heard this song. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. Yep, I've heard this before. This is like a very famous Russian.
Мне твой взгляд неподкупный знаком.
Yep, I've heard this. Da 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 da. Yep, I've heard this before. We stand ready. StarCraft. Oh, okay. Anyhow, check these tracks out. Okay, man. I wonder why Ted never talked about that. Talked about what? What are you referring to? Jasper Byrne, Voyager. A little too bright for me. I've been here for 3 hours, guys. I think I'm done. Thanks for the torture and for the funny comments and for some of the music, except for Beethoven and whatever weird LARPing music that popped up. Yeah. Hope you guys are well. Hope you guys do good. We got 18 people listening. You guys heard the Friday live stream. Stay off the eugenics, guys. It's bad for you. And stay off the Ukrainian LARPing. So yeah, anyway. See you guys, everybody. See you around. Beethoven sucks. No. All right, guys. I gotta get something to eat. Good morning from Europe. Were you doing an all-nighter, Robbie? Were you doing an all-nighter? I think you're living in I don't want to say where you live, but were you doing an all-nighter? When Russia invaded Poland, I did an all-nighter. I just stayed up all night reading about it. It was insane. I felt so amazing when the sun rose. I felt like I was on top of the world. Why I never talked about the Taiping Rebellion. I have no idea, my friend. I don't know everything, but thank you for letting me know about that. FM Fluidum, good night. Yeah, I hate Iron Maiden. 3 a.m. Oh, okay, so it's not an all night. You still have time to go to bed and wake up at a reasonable time. All right, guys. Good night. God bless you all. Have a good weekend. See you guys later.